Kent, are you going to be speaking to this?
Yes, and the chief as well.
So we'll open up the hearing on the bonding for the warrant article.
Okay, thank you. I'm Mark Furlong. I'm chairman of the Fire Station Building Committee, and I'd like to introduce our committee. Chuck Hart is our vice chair, Andrew Berridge, William Sullivan, Kevin St. James, the selectmen's rep, Kent Walker, Brian Gallant, Graham Pellerin, Rich St. Hilaire, and Tom Rowan. Tonight we're going to go over a little bit of the history and the timeline of this project, some of the things that are driving the need for a new station, give you a little bit of the history of how we got to where we are with this proposal, and then talk about all the fun stuff, the budget, and what the projected tax impact is going to be. This project's been underway for quite a long time. Around 2001, the fire department began studying the issue of the current station and its inadequacies, and a capital reserve fund was created in 2004, so almost 20 years, more than 15 years ago. And then the idea of doing something with the fire station was also included in both the Kingston master plan, which I think was 2007, and has been included in the capital improvement plan, which I believe is updated yearly by the planning board. In 2006, there was an engineering evaluation done of the current study of the current facility, and that pointed out a number of issues with the building, including its age and cost to renovate. Around 2012, the town began receiving services from SMP, the architecture firm, to begin the process, and they've been working with us since then. And as most of you know, in 2017, a previous committee had proposed building a new station at 24 Main Street. There was strong support for a new station, but not that location. So our committee was formed in May of 2018. I guess that 2017 should be 2018, I believe. And our first priority was to find a site. We evaluated over 30 sites throughout the town, and we've reported that out previously, so I'm not going to go into the detail on that. And basically, we came up with the best option, which was to buy some land adjacent to the current station, do a land swap with another adjoining property, and we brought that to the voters last March, and it was passed. And I'm happy to report that that transaction actually closed about a month ago on December 2nd. At this point, I'll turn it over to the chief to talk about the current station.
Good evening, Fire Chief Graham Pellerin. So my section here, I guess, is to explain the need for a new station and some of the driving factors for building a new station, and also what some inadequacies of the current station are. So the Main Street part of the station, the current station that you can see here was built in 1948, so that one is 72 years old. It served as both the police station at one point and the fire station. Rockrimmon Roadside, and the current offices that we have was built in 1969 and added on to in 1969, 51 years old. Inadequate to support current and future operations. So as the town grows, we're obviously going to need, more fire trucks, possibly different fire trucks. It's been talked about a possibility of a ladder truck in the next 10, 15 years. We don't know how the build out of the town is going to look, 15, 20, 30 years from now. Future operations, again, more staffing possibly. Just a different route that the fire department may need to take based on the needs of the town. ADA compliance. So the bathrooms, we currently have 3 bathrooms. The 2 that are downstairs lack heat in them currently. They have a heat fan that's on a timer, but the bathrooms aren't necessarily ADA compliant. access to the second floor administration area, the offices, so that we do have a certified chair lift through for the back stairway. Unfortunately, it's not big enough to accommodate all wheelchairs. A few years ago, we had a Seacoast Chiefs meeting there, a breakfast, and the Brentwood fire chief at the time was in a wheelchair, and we couldn't bring him upstairs because his chair wouldn't fit on the lift. Entry doors, several issues with entry doors, just a constant problem. So we looked at adding on to the station on the back portion of it. We've looked at several different plans, money-wise. We actually, George Korn, a few years ago, had mentioned possibly keeping this section and adding on to it, with a new station and bigger apparatus bays. After talking to engineers and architects, the amount of work that it would take just to renovate this part of the building to bring it up to code, they said was not worth anything. So wiring, heating, everything that would need to be brought up to code was just cost prohibitive at the time. So we plan to, most of our calls are north of Folly Brook, so that's kind of our dividing line that we use for the fire station and calls, north of Folly Brook, south of Folly Brook. 75% of our calls are north. That's where you have the majority of, now we have the assisted living, the majority of over 55 plus communities are all north of Folly Brook. So for those of you who don't know, we currently have two stations, one at 148 Main Street and the other one at the beginning of Hunt Road on 125. So Apparatus Base, as you can see, the top picture there and the bottom picture. So we had to, Rich, I'm not sure what year it was, 7 years ago, that we had to widen the doors on the Rock Rimmon Road side to accommodate the tanker there on the right-hand side and the engines beside it. The ambulances that we currently swap the mirrors from passenger side to driver's side and vice versa to bring them closer in to fit through the doors as they sit. The space in the station, so the tanker is 35 feet long. We actually have had to minimize the length of trucks to be able to walk around the trucks currently. As you can see, it's pretty tight side by side there with all three trucks, and mounting and dismounting the apparatus in full turnout gear, going to a call or returning from a call can be dangerous. So the two engines, engine 2 and engine 3 on the left-hand side of the top picture, those are what they call cab overs. So in order to work on the engine or check the oil or the antifreeze, you need to tilt the whole cab up, and that's not able to be accomplished inside the station. And then the tanker, when it's fully backed in, you cannot open the hood to the tanker to, again, check the oil or the antifreeze without opening the bay. In order to do general maintenance on the trucks, they need to be pulled outside. Obviously not great in the winter or during inclement weather. Storage spaces. So we have very limited storage space here. Many years ago, we, as a fire association, paid for and built an addition onto the South Station, station on Hunt Road. That gave us more storage, but still not enough to house all the equipment and the expanding equipment and excuse me, and the needs that we have at Central Station. So currently the gear, fire gear, turnout gear is stored on racking systems around the station, all in the apparatus floor, behind the tanker, behind the forestry, behind the ambulances. NFPA is not, it's a suggestion nationally, and it's based on study of fire departments in the area, and it does require that we have a separate room for gear. We did add a Plimo vent system to the station years ago. South Station currently doesn't have a Plimo vent system, which we would be looking to remedy with the building of the new building. But NFPA standards requires that we have a separate room for gear to keep all the carcinogens out of the living quarters. Decon area. So in the current central station, we have one shower in one of the bathrooms that has no heat. With all the cancer research and things that they're doing with firefighting and deconning after a structure fire or a hazmat incident, we need a decon area to wash our gear off, to wash ourselves off. So another reason things aren't adequate at the current station. So right now we have a driven well. Obviously, over the next few meetings, we'll be addressing issues and concerns with the possible contaminants of groundwater there. So we currently do have a filter system. Thank you to the Selectmen for approving that last year. But currently a point well, if we had an artesian well, we'd be able to fill trucks at the station and it'd be a cleaner water source. Sleeping at the station. So some of you in this room and some of you folks at home probably don't know that the Selectmen last year voted to approve the per diem and 24-hour coverage at the station. So currently we have, with a full schedule, we have the station covered 24/7 with 2 members. So that was to improve response times and being able to get apparatus out the door as fast as possible to answer emergencies. Without the new station, the current station is not sprinklered at this time. We had the fire marshal from the state of New Hampshire take a look at everything. He basically gave us the okay to sleep there and man the station 24/7 because we've slept there before during major snowstorms and ice events, the Mother's Day floods. But again, that's only a temporary okay from the state fire marshal, which could be rescinded at any time. EOC is an emergency operations center. So again, during the floods, the winter storms, hurricanes, etc., everything is run out of Central Station. So if you have wires down or the Selectmen need to meet during a major weather event, they come to the station and everything's run out of there. We're also part of the EPZ, which is through Seabrook Station, the Emergency Protection Zone. If there's a release at Seabrook Station, then we set up multiple phone lines and transportation and all the resources come to Central Station and get dispatched from there. Bay lighting, currently we have fluorescent lighting in the bays, which when you open the doors covers the lighting. It's a very poor design, but was built back in the 60s. Insulation, there's no insulation or barriers between the apparatus floor and the office or living areas upstairs. So whatever carcinogens, diesel fumes, whatever that's in the bay area could leak upstairs and affect the living areas. Again, with the equipment storage, we have several seasonal pieces of equipment. We have ice rescue equipment, forestry equipment, the boat, all of that stuff, depending on the time of year, is either bounced from Central Station to South Station or vice versa, depending on when we need it. So a new building, more storage, we'd be able to store things there and not run out of room. So a brief overview, again, Grand Pellerin Fire Chief. We have 1 administrator, 4 firefighters that we just switched in September to 24-hour rotating shifts. We have roughly 20 paid on-call fire department members and 15 to 20 per diem members. Apparatus, 3 engines, 1 tanker, 2 ambulances, a forestry truck, boat, air trailer, and then the command car. We answer about 1,300 emergency calls per year. That's both fire and ambulance. and then 1,200 roughly public assists, inspections, general questions, phone calls, people coming into the station for directions, all of that. So again, I mentioned most of the 55 plus communities, Ash Drive, Lamplighter, Kingston Pines, are mostly north of. You do have Granite Fields development down there that is a 55 plus, but with the addition of All-American Assisted Living, you're going to have a lot more calls north Kingston. So we have put out a few times looking for call members, and a lot of our call members are here tonight, thank you. But with the amount of training and certification and just time and dedication that it takes to become a call member, people aren't able to dedicate that much time. So hence the need for full-timers, per diem members, and call members that we have. So again, the current stations we have are Main Street and Hunt Road, 70 and 50 years old. The architects, the building, the construction managers try to put a goal of 50 years. So this building will be good, hopefully, for 50 years. It's not that a building needs to get replaced every 50 years, but the town and the demographics and the need of the fire station could change drastically in 50 years from now. So the Main Street station, being 70 years old, has definitely served its purpose. And I believe Kingston.
Wow, Chief, I thought I talked a lot, but you definitely talked a lot. So we're going to go through the building, the budgeting of the building as well. So how we really derive the need plan, site selection, feasibility. As Mark said, we looked at about 30 sites. Some were just purchase, some weren't for sale, some just was wetlands. So we looked all over the town map, came up with 30, kind of culled that down really fast to probably 6 or 7 sites. Again, some weren't for sale. The lake was a really good idea last year that we took that one off. So 148 Main Street really became probably the best site for it, except the size of it. So it's only about a 0.75 acre lot, and we'll get into that in a little bit. We'll go through the construction plan and the specification plan on how we got to the budget today. So this is just a quick snapshot of kind of the phases of building a building like this, the library, a town hall, a school. So you have to really take a look at what are the needs, put those down on paper. This wasn't let's put everything in the kitchen sink in. We didn't have a wish list. So the architects, the construction management company came down, they said, what do you need? What do you have? What's its deficiencies? And what do you need? So that's really how the big Excel spreadsheet gets driven to really develop the spatial needs document. Then we go from there, we do a site analysis, feasibility study. Will that spatial needs study really fit on the land that we picked? Answer was no. So as you know, last year we kind of expanded that land with the land swap and the land purchase for Rock Rimmon Road and then 146 Main Street. So we did a little land swapping and acquisitions. That's all done as of December. So we now have a viable site. It's about a 1.9 acre lot, 1.88. So then we get into, so we've presented numerous times to the Board of Selectmen, to the people, and really sat down with the architect and said, now what is this thing conceptually going to look like? Now what you're going to see is just that. It's a conceptual building with a lot of cuts. We went from about a 16,400 square foot building to 14,000 now. So we've cut a lot of space out of it and really got to a point where we think we cut any more, we're going to lose functionality. So we'll take a look at that. So quickly, this is just a snapshot of the land that we're discussing. So that's 4 Rock Rimmon Road, the lot. That's 146 Main Street. and up in the top right is the existing station. So what you can see is a building, that right there is about a 16,000 square foot building. It does not fit on the existing fire station. Even if we took it down, you can see, you know, this area here is not enough. So with the land acquisition, we kind of squared up, have a nice big rectangle, so a decent sized building will fit on that. So as I said, we've cut from about 16.5 down to about 14.1. That's actually the size as it is today, 14,125. About 1,200 of that is a cellar for the mechanicals. So we wanted to try to minimize the first floor footprint on, you know, kind of on ground level. So we did go with a cellar to do that. As you can see on the some of the concepts, the bays were out closer to the Main Street side. So that wall that we would see is probably long. We didn't really want that, so we flipped the building, as you see now. So the bays are kind of going down the Rock Rimmon side. So this would be Main Street here, and then Rock Rimmon down the top there. So that's an 8-bay fire station. Kind of two different construction methods going on here. So this is more of, this is an ICF, insulated concrete form. So it's a concrete building, pretty thick walls, 12, 14-inch thick walls, which is really, ICF is good green side as far as heating and cooling. So it's going to keep the heat in the winter, and it's going to keep the air conditioning in the summer. So it's very good as far as efficiency on the HVAC stuff. And then on the bay side, that's more of a metal structure building with some, and then you can finish it on the, you know, the fascia can be anything you want. You could have wood, you could have brick. So we'll see a couple of renderings of where we are today. As the chief said, the gear room, there's a lot of space here for work areas, maintenance areas, decontamination, showers. So there's a shower in here. If we come back from a structure fire, it's all black and contaminated, so we can get out of our gear, take a shower, get everything into the decon room, and get that cleaned, washed, and dried as well. Kind of keeping it totally free from the admin side. Some of the times you have to walk right through the admin sections of some of the fire stations that are built, so we wanted to isolate all the bad stuff from the admin piece. The blue section is more pure administration, so that's the chief's office, a general office, a couple meeting rooms, one larger, one smaller. This would be the front door of the vestibule entryway. Training room is here. Kitchen and day room, 4 bunk rooms, handicap accessible showers, storage, and more, just some more storage on this side. There's a room for a server, video equipment, things like that, the security system, so we have to have a separate room for that. One of the questions that came up in one of these presentations, this will be a flat roof, so it's going to look like, you know, we wanted to really keep the peak down. If you go by the Brentwood station, it's tall. Picture picking up the Brentwood station and sticking it on the corner. It's going to be a very big looking building. So that roof line down, after a lot of discussion, this piece will be a flat roof. It will be a slope. There'll probably be like 2 feet and 80 feet for drainage, but in essence, it will look like a flat roof. And then you'll see different roof lines on the admin piece. As I mentioned, there's about a 1,200 square foot cellar, basement in there for mechanicals. So we'll have the electrical and the sprinkler and all that downstairs, as well as a pretty good sized storage room and storage area as well. So that's our first real concept that you see. You can see the admin piece. So this looks to be like a wood frame building, but that is concrete walls faced with more of a PVC, washable, green type coat covering on the walls. But in essence, it's a concrete building. Trusses up here, and then different roof lines, and then this is where the metal building would be on the right for the bays. And then there's brick facade to make it look kind of like the building is today, much bigger. Those are 20-foot bays with 14-foot wide doors, 16 feet high. One of those bays has a 16-foot wide door, so we could actually get two pieces of equipment into that door and almost park them in parallel if we need to. That would be, so that picture would be looking from the corner of Main Street and Rock Rimmon, kind of down Rock Rimmon. This would be further down Rock Rimmon looking back towards Main Street. This is looking further down Main, looking at the back of the station. Again, back to that front elevation. So how did we come up with the costs that you're going to see? So there are two things when you drive to a construction budget, and that's the hard costs and the soft costs. So the hard cost is just that, the materials, the construction, the labor, the testing, the certifications, everything in that kind of that general contractor's price, if you will. So really the building itself, but that's not where it ends. There's a lot of soft costs associated with this as well, as was the high school and the library, right? So you have furniture, you have racking systems for the hose, for the EMS equipment. So in all those storage closets, you open them up, you're going to have some racking systems, which can drive the costs up as we go through. We had two big things that you're going to see in this budget, and that was the utility move and a water supply. We'll talk about those in a little bit, but the utility move was $118,000. If you go by the station now, the utility is on the back side of the building. So it runs on utility poles on the back side, which would actually be right in the middle of our building. So we got to move them up onto Main Street, down a little bit, and then down the Rock Rimmon, the other side of Rock Rimmon Road. That's about $118,000 move, which was a little bit unanticipated. The second one was a water supply. So presently, the town hall, the church, the old high school, all tie into an old fire suppression system that sits on the old high school. That's approaching the 25-year mark. The pump, the building, the electrical, it does not have a backup generator. So to be part of our system, we do need backup power because we're an EOC, because we're the emergency operating system. That backup generator and that backup power. The problem with that, if we don't add a generator to that water supply system, we really can't be staying in that building. Nor could the church really have, hold mass or anything like that with people in it without a fire watch. Anyway, so we approached the Board of Selectmen, and it didn't take long to realize we probably need to get off of the old system and really get onto a new system. This system, the new water supply system, will be designed for the town buildings. So the town hall, the fire station, Bakey, maybe it's in some day may tie into that, but this will be designed for 3 or 4 different town buildings and sized accordingly, which unfortunately put a pretty good price tag on that. So that was about $320,000 just for the water supply system to have sprinkler water for the town buildings. Contingency funds, those are always in there. Something goes something goes wrong, we need to pull from a contingency fund, so you'll see that's in the soft costs as well. We did do the same thing that the high school and the library did, and we employed a construction management firm. That is a company we hire on the town's behalf to build that building for us, right? So it's kind of a clerk of the works, but he really is it's in the best interest of the town, and he supplies us the quotes. If we wanted to see the 3 or 4 concrete quotes, he'll absolutely show those to us. He's there on our behalf to drive the price down of the overall cost of the building. As I said, the high school did the same thing. The library was actually built by the same construction management firm, Bowen Corporation, out of Meredith, New Hampshire. So really, they're going to be our eyes. They'll have a construction super on the job, day to day, in the of this building. SMP Architects is out of Concord. They really, Mark and the chief went through some history of the building, and we've been dealing with SMP for probably over 10 years, Rich, I think, right? They actually kind of quoted a renovation and an addition onto the building, so that was over $1.5 million just to put an addition on the existing building and not bring the 70-year and the 50-year section even up to code. So everybody, oh, you could just put it, renovate it, and we're probably, they came back and said, it's not worth it. We're gonna have to pull all the sheetrock, all the electrical, all the plumbing to bring it up to code. You need an elevator in that building. It's just not worth doing. Pull it down, start over. So that's where we're at today. So we've had a number of different concepts with them and the fit assessment. So they really helped us through this whole process, through the design and concept and the budget development of this. As I said, Bowen will be responsible for the kind of that hard construction piece of it, day-to-day construction, pulling all the quotes together and trying to help us drive down the overall cost. So when you take a look at the budget, it's made up of some very specific sections and specifications that they go out to bid, and there's some things that really drive the price of the building. That's site work, concrete, masonry, steel, woods and plastics, so that's all your trims and finishes. Thermal barriers, that's insulation, plastics, all that. Under the floor, in the walls, above the ceiling, things like that. Doors and windows, finishes, mechanicals, that's a big one. The HVACs and all the mechanicals and the sprinkler is a big number for this project. The electrical, and then kind of general terms, that's plowing, trash removal, all that stuff during the construction phase. So costing is derived by quotations from contractors that they use today. It's derived from recent projects they've done. So we have a benefit that both Bowen and SMP have recently completed several fire stations. So Ware, New Hampshire, Meredith. So they've looked at a bunch of different projects that they've done in the past, and it's not the same as an average building. There's other things that go in the fire station that, make it a little more costly. So understand that, that they're educated estimates by construction professionals. These aren't right on the money. Things can change, right? By the time the construction actually occurs, it could, at best, it's probably September, October of next year that we could even break ground, because we have to design it. Structural, all the structural design, mechanical design actually has to be done. That's not done at this point. So again, working with SMP and Bowen during the next stage, really will try to drive the cost of that down. But we have a warrant article price at this time. Everybody sitting down? Okay, good. So you can see the building itself comes in at $4.39 million. That's that hard cost. That's the building, the materials, the concrete, the finishes. Then there are those unforeseen pieces in there that we said, the utility, the water supply design and system, cistern, pumps, all that. Furniture and fixtures, that's the least of our worries at the 200,000. So if you add all that up, that's a $5 million project. I know, it's a big number. You can see, we have all this in detail as far as concrete, electrical, whatever you want to see. We will try to get this available so you can see all the detail. But that's where we're at. Just to kind of summarize the building itself, as I said, we went from a 0.72 acre lot to a 1.86 acre lot. So we have the land that we need. The project is to be built right off the back corner of the existing building. So it's going to be a little further set back. Today, the station will come down. It is part of the project. We want everybody to understand that when the building is finished, the existing station will be dismantled and taken away. Existing station utilized for the completion of the project, which is great for us. We can operate out of the existing station, and then when it's done, we'll take that down. We may have to utilize the actual area that the building sit, maybe septic, maybe a cistern, that we may have to take that down and actually finish new building, the old building's taken down. As I said, 14,000 square foot, 8 bay. The construction will be twofold, integrated concrete forms for the admin piece with more of a metal type framework on the bays with a facade of brick on both ends. Again, the ICF is very green as far as heating and cooling. We want to try to drive that as much as we can without going crazy cost-wise. One of the other things that we heard, we made 7 different trips. There was Stratum and Pelham. And if you went to the Pelham station, the chief said, I really wish my windows opened because the HVAC system is either on or off. We wish we could just shut it off, open the windows in the springtime or the summertime when it's not that hot, and not deal with the heat coming on or the air conditioner coming on. So that's one of the things the architect said, great idea. And that really goes to probably lowering the overall air conditioning bill. So windows are going to be open. As I said before, 3 bays will be 14-foot doors. 1 bay will... the bay floors will be concrete. We did not go with an epoxy finish. That was about an $80,000 adder that we decided we're not going to do. And the more we talk to people with epoxy floors, they're always redoing them. So 5, 6, 7 years down the road, they're spending another $60,000, $70,000 sanding it down, re-epoxying it. Looks great, but we just don't think we need it. If we have a nice polished concrete, it's all we need. Radiant heat. So throughout, both the bays and the admin area will have radiant floor heat. It will really be an advantage for the trucks. They'll dry off much quicker. You won't have ice on the bays in the station falling off. And then the admin piece, I don't know if anybody's been in a home with radiant heat. It really is a very comfortable heat, and it's very efficient that way. So we had talked about removing it, but everyone said, you're crazy. For the amount of money, leave it in. You're not going to get a better heating system. Rich has it in the highway garage, and actually he was one of the big, said, don't do it, don't take it out, it's not worth it. You're never going to be able to put it back in. So now's the time to put it in. Lighting, green, all LED, and honestly you can't buy anything but anymore, but motion controls to try to, timers, motion controls, try to shut things off when we're not in the room, right? So lowering the bill. Building costs, ADA compliance, that's a given. If you're going to build a new building, it's going to be all handicap accessible and compliant. All the trim, PVC, plasticky, washable, inside and out. So we want to have a fairly low maintenance, minimize wood, minimize rot, painting. We're going to go long-term materials. So on December 20th, SMP and Bowen were here. We did a presentation on the construction for us, on the construction costs. As I said, just to review, he really did go through the complete project either with gut quotes or use very recent similar projects that they pulled money from. Unfortunately, we're building right now in a construction is up. I don't know if anybody's got a contractor to come to their home, but they're not showing up because they're very busy, right? So again, we'll probably be a year away before construction actually starts, so maybe things will settle down. My business is in the business I work for is in construction. It is cooling off, so 2020 is going to be a little bit less hectic. Where are we at? So we did in that meeting cut about $60,000 out of the budget, which was pretty quickly. But we also forgot a $60,000 backup generator, which is $65,000. So our cuts went right back into a soft cost that we, SMP thought they didn't know if they were going to put it in. Bowen didn't know if they were going to put it in. Doesn't matter, has to go in there. One of the things about a $65,000 backup generator for power is Seabrook Station picks up 50% of it. State of New Hampshire picks up 25% of it. So really, the town of Kingston only has to pick up 25% of the cost of that generator, but you need to pay for it. So we'll get some of that money back, but we need to put it in the warrant article kind of at full cost. Where are we? So the amount of brick, we did take during that meeting, both SMP, the architect, and Bowen, the construction management team, agreed to take $200,000 out of the budget for wall systems. We got the Cadillac. They quoted a high end. Both of them were very shocked at the price of the wall system. They said they know they can come down in the price. They agreed to take $200,000 just out of the brick. And we also found a wall at the end of the building that was all brick, and we said, no, that needs to go. So the end wall on the Rock Rimmon side was 30 foot high, 80 feet wide of brick. So that was a pretty significant cost saving. So we do still think the wall system is going to come down and the brick is going to come down. We just can't put that in the budget right now because we don't have any solid quotes. So we have the quotes that we have, and that's, we did take $200,000 out, and we hope that's going to come down, but we really can't take it out as we speak. So the total budget, if you wrap it all up again, is 5.8. And that's, that's what the financing will need to be. And I'm going to turn this one over to Chuck to really talk about the finances. Yes. Oh, see.
So they only voted on tax and got to do that. Well, it is, it's not revenue you're not generating. If you're giving them a tax break. Are we broken?
So, while we're waiting for that to warm up, I will get started with the information that I have. And the first item is that we did a lot of research on the funding. We've had many conversations between the selectmen and ourselves and have several options that we had started to look at. One of the options was to finance everything 100% from the dump fund. Another part of it is the dump fund, to fund it through the dump fund, but the possibility of using some of the interest from the dump fund to augment the payments at the beginning of the year, which obviously would relate back to the tax rate. Fund it all from bonds, which is what you'll see here at the end tonight. Yeah, that's basically it. We can fund it all, we can bond it all, or we can use some of, may be able to use some of the interest from the bond, interest from the dump fund to use it. We have secured bond counsel, which you have to do in order to get this through. The bond counsel does not charge until the end. If it passes, then we have to pay him. He's set up with the warrant article. Once we had gotten the information, we sent it through to him, and both he and DRA, and the warrant article you'll see at the end has been approved by both of them. Oh, there it is. All right.
Chuck, I think you're gonna need to speak into the mic a little closer.
And as I said, we won't pay, once we get it approved, then we pay him to follow it through to make sure we get the bond. He works with the New Hampshire Municipal Department to get the bond sold. As you can see, in dealing with the New Hampshire Municipal Bond Bank, the interest rates right now are very, very good. The latest bond in January was 2.5%. They anticipate that. We would be looking to get a bond in July. They anticipate it to be probably the same. The rates are very, very good at this point. As you can see also, when it goes to vote, 3/5 vote, 60% vote, because it's a bond item. They had no clue from a perspective of a bond who the town of Kingston was or is, because we've never bonded anything through them. Bonding or getting a rating, etc. So she was interested. So, as Kent has said, right now the total amount is $5,825,628. Now, obviously, that will probably be rounded off to 5.8. Capital Reserve Fund, we have $230,000 left over in that fund, which was the actual fund established years ago to build our house. We used some of the original money for that to buy the piece of property and do some of the pre-planning there. So that gets deducted from the actual amount that we're going to require for the bond. So reality is the bond would be, again, rough math, 5.6. 20-year bond, and as I say, we're the payouts for the 20 years. Tax impact, which is probably what a lot of us are interested in. Based on the 5.6 bond, it would be 49 cents a thousand per thousand. The average house valued at $260 is $127 a year. And you go down a little bit further, if you use the 300,000 mark, it's $147 a year for the house. It's still 49 cents a thousand. And as you can see in there with a little humor, it's 35 cents a day, or 2 Dunkin' Munchkins. Even the other one there is again, 2 Dunkin' Munchkins. The chief could not have to get any anymore. He'd saved the money so we could use it. So that's really how it lays out. And this information's all based on the final amount we got with the construction company. So, and this is what the warrant article at present, with all of the numbers that we have, and as Kent says, these numbers could change a little bit, although we don't have much time to get the warrant article in. So it's pretty well cut and dry. This is what, because it's a bond article, what bond council recommended or helped us write. And again, fill in the blanks with it. The 5.8 tells you what the total amount is to construct and build the building. We're gonna borrow or bond the 5.59. And then it also tells you that we're taking $230,000 out of the existing capital reserve fund. And the rest of it is legal schmeagle stuff that we don't have to worry about. Again, the other important thing is that it is a 3/5 ballot, so we do need 60% in order for the bond to pass. If you don't get the 60%, we don't get the bond, so.
Previous slide, 0.49 cents or
0.49 cents. So, I think that's it. You guys.
Settle. No questions, no comments? Okay, one.
Hi, I'm Mary Sear, and I'd like to thank the committee. Congratulations to Chief Pellerin. Thanks for all you guys for working collaboratively. But my question is, at one point, the select board decided not to tap into accrued interest and dividends from the infrastructure fund, deciding instead to recommend that we bond the full amount less the capital reserve balance. Could you tell us what is available in the interest and dividends, at the end of the last reporting period?
Okay, so
Fund. That which, as a result of this hearing, could in fact be appropriated to reduce the amount of the bond.
so how much?
Available.
What's the interest balance and what's the bond, the
The
total of
dividend
the fund?
balance, interest and dividend from the principal amount that's in the infrastructure fund, the dump fund.
Interest on hand, and then the amount in the fund.
Okay, roughly. With the selectmen aren't authorized, even after having a hearing of dipping into, that would have to be done through a warrant article. I believe.
I have the exact number.
Okay.
Currently, it's 5.276.
Come to a mic, we can't hear you.
That's the. Okay.
Thank you.
Current income available.
Brad, would you go to a mic so people at home can hear you? I can hear you.
Turn the lights on, Graham.
State accounts for money. We have it. We keep the interest generated separate. Ending balance of interest currently available is. This is end of November. Yeah, end of November. Current interest available is $293,566.
Does that include dividends?
Yeah, it's income.
Income, perfect. Thank you.
I think that information may be a little confusing.
The principal has grown. It's not considered income, it's growth of principal. So it's not available as income. It's not all available as income.
Okay, well,
So what's the bottom line?
The number I just gave you,
Okay.
290?
Is at some of the selectmen's meetings along the way, you discuss the possibility of considering using those available funds from income and dividends to offset the amount that you would eventually bond. And most recently, you decided to forego that and leave it in place for your recommended warrant article and bond the full amount. Could you tell the public why you decided that, please?
well, I think the discussion was on whether or not we could use some of those funds to help offset the costs of the bond. And that still is a viable option as it stands right now.
So what is the total amount that's in the account now that's available?
So we simply talked. The board's feeling after discussion was that it was to let the people know what the tax impact would be, let them bond the full amount, and then if we could certainly take a look at offsetting some of the costs of that repayment by utilizing some of the monies generated in the form of interest on the existing fund. But the discussion was to not invade the original principle that was set up. I gotta say, myself, I was looking at it differently than Brad was, because I looked at it as the original principle was 4 million, and that will always be the original principle, and any growth after that would be considered earned income, and not, I guess on an accounting basis, you're adding that to the original principle, but that wasn't the real principle, even though that is helping generate the additional interest. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so.
Rich?
No, but I think so.
So does that mean I have to tear down the?
That's what it was.
So why was it all right then? And because that was all, we looked at the $4 million and there was $4.7 million in there. And we had a warrant article, we took $700,000 out to build a highway garage. So if the rules change, we make a big mistake.
I don't think there was a warrant article ever on the.
2014.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because I insist. 700,000, whatever that number was.
Again, just like in this case, I guess Brad and I see differently on this.
It's not me, it's the state. It's a state accounting method.
Okay,
I guess I got away with it. Sorry about that, fire department. I got away with murder.
we looked at that, Rich, as whatever was in excess of the $4 million was what the account had generated, and therefore that money was available with a hearing to be utilized for infrastructure improvements.
So Brad, just one more time, just make sure I'm getting this right. There's 5.76 roughly in the
Currently in the account, as of the end of the year, it's 5.430.
okay. But that
$5.4 million.
But that does not include the 293, or does include?
That includes the 293.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Matthew Steer. I just have one question. It might be for these folks more than you guys. From a long-term projection for the building, is there any forward-looking for growth of the building? Should it need to be a second story later on? Is it constructed in such a way that it can be added on to without having to tear it down and start all over again 10 years from now, 15 years from now?
We've had this discussion with SMP. It's a short-term, the answer was back to us, no, it's not feasible. They wouldn't be interested in, as I said, we had looked at a $1.5 million addition.
He's talking about, can the new building be expanded 10 years down the road?
What's the life expectancy of it?
The life
based on
expectancy
50
today,
years.
we're designing that building for 50 years. We don't see, based on sitting down, the need for expanding that building at all in the next 10 years. That's an 8-bay. It's almost, the bay size is almost 2.5 times what we have today.
Not so much the apparatus side of it, I'm talking the admin side.
Yep.
For more facilities for sleeping quarters, more facilities for offices. We're going to expand at some point, we're so close to mass. Is that building suitable to be able to be expanded on the admin side?
You will have some room on the Main Street side of it, but we just, based on the design, we
Maybe you
don't
could
see.
speak to how much personnel it's designed for now.
Right, so right now, that's designed for 4 on shift, which we do not have. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, but 4 full-time firefighter EMTs in there 24/7. We're gonna be a ways away from that. You have 2 now. We're rolling ambulances, we're rolling engines. We just don't see it.
Ken, I thought I asked that question way back when you said the 14-inch ICF walls would be able to support, if needed, taking down the truss roof and putting a second story on it.
Could go up if needed, but again,
Yes. So,
go up.
My second question is, we also have South Station. Is there any improvements being done to South Station? Is South Station being closed? Is it strictly just going to be used for storage? What's the intent of South Station?
You want to speak to that, Brian?
So South Station right now currently holds mostly storage, but also 2 engines. Moving forward, again, with most of the calls being north of the midline of Kingston, we would keep 1 engine down there to satisfy any ISO ratings, whatever. We still have call members that do respond there on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. So we would keep it open. The only improvements that we're looking at right now is taking the current Plymouth vent system that's at Central, relocating it to South Station to improve with, health issues with carcinogens and diesel fumes and all that good stuff. At some point in the next, decade, I would assume, yes, we're gonna have to put a shower there and revamp it a little bit, but at this current time, we're not looking to do anything there.
And my last question is actually for the selectmen. Graham had stated, as well as in the slides, that we've moved to a 24-hour department. What brought that upon this town, considering we're the average size of every town around us and nobody's 24-hour? What brought that upon this town at this point to increase budget for the fire department?
I guess that's me again. When I took over September 1st from Bill Seaman, who retired, we, from January 1st to September 1st, had missed 12 calls that Kingston Fire could not staff. That meant calling mutual aid, East Kingston, Brentwood. A few times we had to call Epping Fire. So when I took over and realized...
These were ambulance calls?
Yes, ambulance and a few fire calls as well. When I took over and realized that our average response time for a Kingston ambulance was upwards of 20 to even 30 minutes for Epping responding here on Scotland Road, I thought that was, being a Kingston resident, unacceptable, and missing calls is not okay. If meeting with other area chiefs, Seacoast chiefs in Brentwood and Epping, Epping is 24/7. Yes, they do have a lot of business, but most of their business is closed. They're not 24/7, so their population is sort of comparable to Kingston. Brentwood, speaking to Chief Joe Bird, they will be looking to go to a 24-hour schedule. Most towns our size, every chief that I talk to says that like 1,000 emergency calls per year is kind of the limit for call people. After losing Fire Chief, retired Bill Seaman and his wife, a few other key members that were taking, 3, 4, 5 nights of duty a week, after people moving out of town, retiring, whatever the case was, it was necessary to go to 24/7.
I'd like to point out that when Graham approached us on September 4th with his plans to go 24/7 with the per diem, that put 2 firefighters in the station round the clock at no cost. It was within the budget.
How much is that going to increase the budget later on to keep it at 24/7?
Point of order, this is a budget committee, we're gonna have those hearings, this is a bond issue for the building.
But it's in reference to a building that we're talking about improving to operate 24/7.
Okay, my point of order stands, this is a budget committee question.
Graham, you want to speak to the increase in the budget?
So this year, fiscal year, I went to the budget committee and asked for $60,000 additional, because I used some of the call salary line that we had, that we continuously turn money back in for. So I used money from that, and so it's an increase of $60,000. So the budget, my budget went up about 10% because of that.
Ellen?
Oh, I'm sorry. My name's Ellen Faulkner.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry. Excuse me. Through the current I just didn't know what the
What would the procedure be? Well, I guess that the Board of Selectmen would have to revisit, when the Finance Committee came to us and gave us a bunch of different options, we discussed it, and the board made the determination that they'd rather see the full amount bonded. I guess if we were looking to change that, it would involve the selectmen having another discussion on it, and it probably would have an impact on this hearing, would be my guess. Because this is the hearing notifying people on what the bond issue would be.
What I'd like to point out, when he states when the Finance Committee came and the board discussed it, it was a 3-2 vote.
Does the board wish to open the meeting? If so, I'll make a motion to open that conversation.
Can I second that?
I don't think you can, because you weren't informative.
During the bond hearing? What's that?
One of the three would have to make the motion to reconsider it. One of the three would vote on it.
Is that, do you?
I was on the prevailing side. I made the motion.
Does it have to be seconded by one of the other two, or no?
That's what she said.
No, the person that makes the motion has to be.
The person who makes the motion has to be.
Then I'll second it.
Okay. Discussion?
Purposes of discussion.
You made the motion, go ahead.
So I think it's, as I said earlier, I've talked to a number of people since that meeting, and a lot of people feel that we should take some money from the infrastructure account that was established for this type of a purpose. So I think I think we should look at it again and seriously consider using some of that fund for offsetting taxes.
And I'll agree with that, since I was the one that made the motion to use the money before that got defeated.
So I guess the question would be, what number do we want to use? Do you want to use 2.6, if you do go half, it's 2.2. What do you want to do?
I would recommend that we do not use more than 50% of that account. That would be my recommendation. I mean, because there's going to be things coming up in the future that the town will need to use some of that money as well, potentially. So I would recommend that we don't use more than 50% of that.
So if I made a motion to use 2.2?
2.7, right?
Now, let's
No, it's
make sure.
5.4. You're right, 2 point, all right, 2.6, and it rounds it off, considering the interest rates are cheap. You're right.
So again, is that what half of that account is, Brad?
So it's
What am I-
5.4.
5.4 for 2.7.
So if we take 5.4 roughly, it's 2.7.
So if you do 2.6, it leaves 4 million to be bonded, which at the interest rate, it's a,
So you're saying to just round off their number to $4 million. Can you get that number back up so we got an exact for the motion? Or
5825628.
so 2.5.
95602.
Yeah.
So you want 2.595602, correct?
Correct.
Brad, could you just, what's the account currently generating for a rate of return?
This past year, it was roughly 18% increase in value from just a rough average, 18% in May last year. It's not going to do that every year. Last year was very good.
18% return?
18%.
And what's the bond rate? 2.5?
2.5. In the future, you always have the option of taking the generated income from the infrastructure fund and using it toward the fire department.
Interest.
Well, that's what the discussion was.
With a public hearing.
Yeah, that was, we had that discussion with the finance committee. When the board discussed it and said that we didn't want to invade the fund, but we would be open to utilizing that when the bill came due to help offset the impact. So that's been said in the past.
I'll just say that financially, it doesn't make sense to borrow from the bond, or to borrow from this fund, to buy down the bond. But as a taxpayer, and all the people in town are struggling to pay their taxes already, to have that money, basically, they'd look at it as a gift and not have their tax rate go up 49 cents. That's a major deal for some of these people.
Well,
The other thing I'd like to say is, first, I mean, that money is, the highway department, we already know the police, we put in roughly $45,000 on an HVAC system at the police department. The chief says that is fine. The next course of action for an infrastructure, which is the purpose of the fund, is a fire station. We know there's a need, so by taking out a modest amount, it's still going to be earning interest. That was the purpose it was set up for, was the infrastructure. We're not raiding it dry, and I think it makes the most sense.
Bill?
I would like to have the road agent speak to what is necessary to maintain that unlined landfill that we have and what potential issues we may have.
Hold on, Brad. After Rich speaks, please. Then you're going to have to come up to the mic.
Before he does that, can I just point out there is a 1.7 million sitting in a fund to maintain the dump as a separate fund.
Yeah, and I just found that out this weekend, so.
2.2 or 1.7, Brad, for the...
The actual dump fund?
It's maintenance and,
No,
not the infrastructure one.
There is an actual dump fund that is.
1.7.
Could you go to the mic, please? The people at home won't be able to hear you.
testing and maintenance.
So it's 1.7?
1.7, yeah.
So there's a separate fund trustees of the trust fund, there's $1.7 million in a separate fund that's available to be used for maintenance, emergency repairs. It started out at $1 million. When the landfill closed, back in, I think, 2004, when the landfill closed, there was a fund balance of like $13.6 million. I think that was about right.
Approximately.
And we spent about $6 million to close the dump. So that's where the $6 million fund for infrastructure was developed, and then the $1 million fund for repairs. The $1 million fund was mandated by the state as part of the closure plan. That was agreed upon number. That we've only had one repair since 2004. We had a slide, but you always have potential for something to come up, like we're finding with the PFOAs here. We test the water and we test the air at the landfill 3 and 4 times a year. If we come up with a contaminant, and by the way, the air quality is vastly improved because most of the trash is mummified because we've sealed off the water on the top and there's no water getting at it from the bottom. We basically put a big raincoat over the landfill, so all the water sheds off. There could be a slide, basically where the soil slides off the cover. That's an easy repair. If the cover itself rips, then that's more of a major repair. It's very labor intensive to get the soil off the plastic cover, the rubber membrane, and then repair it. Hopefully you get to it before you get a lot of water impregnation. But that was what that $1 million fund was made for, is for that maintenance. If there's ever something that comes up in one of the groundwater wells and we have to move all the trash and put a rubber liner underneath it and put all the trash back in place, $5 million isn't going to touch it. We're going to be bonding $20 million to fix the landfill. So the $5 million fund will help, but it won't do it, because I'm just saying $20 million. It might be 40. I really don't know. But to move all that trash, and then because you'd have to move it in sections, line it, move trash on what you've lined, and just keep going. If it cost us $7 million just to put a cover over it to move all that trash, I'm sure in today's cost is tens and tens of millions of dollars. So we'd be bonding it anyways.
So I will say personally, the reason I voted against using that money is because we kind of fixed that. We're kind of hoping it holds, but not having anything, if we could bond that, that's great, but I think this is something with the interest rate where we're making 18% on that versus a 2.5% bond payment, and having the contingency for something that could be God only knows what, or with PFOA contamination that could potentially bankrupt the town with the way the DES is running it, I felt it prudent to have that money on hand. What I did not know is that there's $1.7 million specifically set aside for the maintenance and repair of the dump as it sits. So I would be in favor of putting 2.6 towards the fire station if we had those contingencies in place for the dump itself.
Brad, you were going to speak to it, or are you all set?
I'm all set.
Okay. Chuck?
Mark, you had asked the question about affecting the bonding, or tonight. My understanding is that if you guys, this bond will go in at 5.8, regardless of what the other ones do, because as long as it's not to exceed that amount of money. Actuality is, if this goes in and then you have the warrant article for 2.6 to That article, if it passes, then the bonding would be dropped down to, I think it was 3.1. So when we go actually to apply for the bond, we would be applying for it at whatever money we have left over. So it doesn't affect this hearing, because we're here for that. If you do the other one, have your hearing. Now, when it goes to the voters and if that one doesn't get approved, it's not predicated on this one getting approved. This is still going to be this. So they could pass this and not pass the other one if the voters decided they didn't want to, use this money. Obviously, if this doesn't pass, then the other one is a moot point at that point.
I guess I'll just speak to it briefly. We have approximately the same amount of money in that fund as we're trying to raise through the bond. We're trying to raise a bond that's coming in at 2.5%. Right now, the fund's earning 18%. To me, financially, it makes much more sense to borrow at the 2.5 and take the yield that we're getting to offset the cost of that bond each year. Even if it goes down to a normal rate of return of 7%, it's still 7% compared to 2.5. And the Board of Selectmen could actually vote to, having a simple hearing, paying the full amount each year out of that fund, and it would not have any negative impact on the taxpayer as far as changing your rate. It's just like we do at the end of the year. This year, I think we applied, I think it was $700,000 to the town's portion of the tax rate, and we realized a relatively modest increase. If we hadn't done that, the municipal tax portion would have gone up an additional $1 from, I think it was 13 cents, but it would have gone up $1. The same thing could be done utilizing that return on our investment to offset the payment for the bond. Any more discussion? Alan?
Ellen Faulkner, for the record. The only thing I want to say about that is that that's something that a board may or may not do. This is trying to set up for the taxpayers to let them know that a certain amount will be raised by the bond and a certain amount will be taken by this, and it's a clear indication of how much money they're going to know that they have to spend on this. The Board of Selectmen in the future, depending on the amount of interest that's raised, can vote at any time to use that interest to offset the amount of money for the bond, for the payment that comes in that year. That would be a pleasure, I'm sure, to the taxpayers, but it may not happen every year. This is the definitive of what the taxpayers can expect. The other thing is, on a different note, number one, the town has a lot to thank you for, Mark, that you did establish this fund a long time ago and closing the dump. That was absolutely accurate, and it was really showed a lot of foresight. At the time that that was done, the revenue from the landfill that used to go to offset taxes was changed to go into the fund to be able to have the money to close the dump. As it turned out, we made more money than was necessary, and this went in here. I already feel like I paid for the fire station because my taxes back then that would have been offset wasn't to close the landfill and to put infrastructure as the account, which is what the fire department is. I think it's a great idea to save some of it, but I think it's in the best interest of the taxpayer to use half of this fund to show them that the money they put away was used for the future of the town, and that it does then mean that we still have a $3 million bond in order to get the fire station.
Anybody else? Okay, we have a motion and a second. It was, I think the amount was what, 2.6?
2.595,602.
Okay, so we got a motion to reduce the bond to $3 million. What's that?
Just ask me a question.
Oh. Okay, so we got a motion to apply $2,595,602 to be taken out of the landfill fund, which will require a separate warrant article, I believe, leaving a balance of approximately $3 million in the fund. All those in favor? That sum it up? Got the motion?
Yep.
Okay.
So you're not changing the bond, right? The bond is still gonna be for 5.595. You're voting to put a warrant article in to let the voters decide if they want to use that money from the dump fund.
Yes. It's gonna be up to the, it's gonna be up to the voters.
I guess we need that clarified. And we were gonna raise the remainder out of that landfill fund. Yes, Mark?
My understanding of how this would need to work is that the warrant article that we've been working on will stay as is, with the total raise and appropriate of 5.8 million, and the bond amount not to exceed the 5.6 million, call it that. And then we would need 2 additional warrant articles. One to revoke the infrastructure fund to take the 2.6 million out, and then a second warrant article to recreate and refund the infrastructure fund with the balance. That's exactly what we did in 2011 and 2012 with building the library. So theoretically, this warrant article would require a 3/5 vote. The other 2 warrant articles would be simple majority. They would be contingent on the bond article, but if they failed, then we would bond the full amount.
Okay. Brad?
Also, if you recall, when they did the library, we bumped up to some rule about 10% of the budget coming from warrant articles. I forget the exact ruling, but they couldn't reestablish the fund or something. It got really complicated. And I think this is going to be very complicated too if you have 2 different things on the ballot for the voters to look at and vote between. I think if you continue to do this, funding half of it through the infrastructure fund, that nothing's going to get passed.
Okay.
How about if we
get the motion restated then?
How about if we I was just gonna say, what if we get the ruling, but we take the vote on whether we're in favor of the 2.595602 coming out, and then the next question is, what do we have to do for the warrant articles?
I think your first part is a really good idea, to take the motion to find out what the Board of Selectmen want to do anyway. My question is, perhaps the moderator may know, I don't know, because it's a bond hearing, we haven't had them. Can you continue this hearing to next Monday, so that in case any inconsistencies came up during what the wording of the next 2 articles can be, you can do that?
Warrant articles have to be on Saturday, right?
This isn't a warrant article, it's a bond
Was
hearing. Yeah, that's right. They're having the hearing Saturday. You'd have to continue it to sometime before Saturday.
Yeah.
To get the correct language so you don't have a flaw.
I don't know the answer to that. I know there was a certain timeline that we had to have the bond hearing by. Now, I don't know if it's, not sure if it needed to be resolved by then or not.
We would still be okay with the legal requirements of Saturday, but you've held the hearing. In my opinion, you've met the legal requirement for informing the public that we are considering putting a bond article on the ballot. So,
if we got an answer from the DRA Saturday before the public hearing, the Board of Selectmen can meet and put in any last minute warrant article, because we're going to be here anyways at 9 o'clock on Saturday.
So vote tonight to see whether we approve, and then get the wording and finalize it.
Find out exactly what you have to do from the DRA.
Right.
Okay, so I guess what the motion would be just to remove $2,595,602 from the infrastructure fund to help offset the cost of the proposed fire station?
Correct.
Okay. All those in favor, signify
Aye.
by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions?
3 in favor, 2 opposed.
What's that?
I see 3 in favor, 2 opposed.
I think we had 3 in favor, wasn't it?
Yeah.
3-2. 3-2. Motion passes. Anything else? If not, I will conclude the public hearing on the bond. Thanks for coming.
What? I think it's gonna be way too confusing.
No, we just gotta figure out how to do it in the warrant article.
It's a guideline. The problem is,
Did she want to see us?
take over 5 minutes.
Yeah, sure. Did she?
Ellen, I see a note on here. Did you want to see us?
Yes, please.
Okay. Sure.
Do that now? Okay, thank you. That's why I actually came. Okay. And Rebecca's here too. I got to speak to.
Hey, can everybody leave?
Well, no.
And said, well, yeah, it's written okay, but why you don't need one? So the advice from the Department of Revenue Administration was that we don't need a warrant article.
Because it was being funded by impact.
Yeah, it's not funded out of the budget, so they said, you don't
Raising
need
and
one.
appropriating.
But we wanted to do what the Board of Selectmen wanted us to do, and we have to know, we need a vote from you tonight, because if you want us to do the warrant article, it's due tomorrow, so I can't. So, but I spoke to Kevin and Mark, who said, don't put it in. But it's like, yeah, but, you know, I really should talk to all of you to find
I
out
would
what.
think anyway it's redundant because the voters have already expressed their interest in spending way more money from the impact fees, so I wouldn't see a need for
Yeah,
it.
so if you guys are good with it, we won't put it in, but we kind of, where it's a
Do you have an
thing,
objection? Rich,
I
Dodge?
have none.
so we don't need a vote from you, it's just gonna show that you guys are in consensus that we don't have to submit a one article.
Yeah.
And so that we'll probably come to you shortly about the contract and review all that, so we might as well get it started. Do you guys, that's okay? Okay,
I guess the contract would be the first thing,
that's
right?
it, we have all of that, but we want to see, you know, we want to do what you guys really want done to a property too, so, okay, well, thank you very much, and
Thank you.
we will look forward to moving forward with you on this shortly.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
What's this note here?
What does it say?
I guess it's the Fire Station Building Committee.
Oh, well, I had a.
Wants to
little-
finalize what's W.
Warrant
Warrant
article.
article.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they wanted to
Come on
have
up,
time
Bob.
after the hearing, to finalize the warrant article.
We just wanted to finalize the warrant article. We had provided a draft to you previously that didn't have the amounts filled in. And now that we have these amounts, you should have a copy there
We got a copy in our
Yeah, we
file?
did.
with the amounts filled in. So we filled in the total raise and appropriate, the 5,825,628, and then the amount to be raised through the sale of bonds of 5,95602, and then the amount to be withdrawn from the capital reserve fund of the 230,026.
I mean, what do you guys think about this editorial on the bottom here?
I think it should be there just so it gives them an idea, although it's gonna be convoluted, because especially if we're gonna take 2.6 out, but I understand what you're saying. If we change this warrant article to 3 million and it passes, but the dump fund doesn't pass,
And we
then
can't build anything.
it doesn't work for you because you only got $3 million. I get that. So the other warrant article is gonna have to have some verbiage in it explaining to the taxpayer, or we're gonna have to really work on.
Has this gone by, hold on a minute, Leslie, okay? Has this gone by the DRA?
This warrant article, without the dollar amounts in there, was reviewed twice by...
The editorial at the bottom, because I
Yes.
know in the past they've
Yes.
said, you know, they used to say that don't belong in there, it
this
used to
was-
be in there, and then they
No,
said
this
you
was
can't
all-
put it in there, and now it's, you can.
This was all in there.
Okay.
The only comment that the bond counsel made about was, he said that the second to last line in the main article, that this project is in the capital improvement program as approved by the planning board, he said that was optional.
Okay. I know we're past the public comment. Leslie is raising her hand. Do you want to extend her time at this point, or do you want to have her wait till
Is it regards to this particular
we
thing?
get to the second
anyways.
public comment?
It's relevant, I'm sorry, I just turned on the TV and saw you were talking about structures with warrant articles and how to do this, and I just thought I'd come back and remind everybody of the history of how the library was built and the warrant articles that we use. Because it's not one warrant article.
Right.
I've got copies here that Chuck gave me from the library warrant articles in the past.
I'm doing what I was cursing everyone for doing.
Here's the thing, and I don't have any objection if the board doesn't. We formalized our process some time ago about allowing 2 timeframes for public comment. We just concluded that. If the board is willing to, then the next one's gonna be coming up a ways down the road. If the board would like to have Leslie's input at this time, we can extend that to her, or we can ask her to wait till the second part. What's your pleasure?
I'm fine with hearing her now, since it's
Don?
pertaining to this.
Phil? Go ahead.
Just a history lesson, I understand just the that they wanted to support, and the Budget Committee ended up supporting. In order to take money out of what we call the dump fund, the infrastructure fund, there are actually 3 warrant articles that have to be written, and all 3 warrant articles have to. One is you actually close the infrastructure fund. The second, you withdraw the money that you want to take from the balance, and the third is you reestablish the fund. All have to.
It negates everything?
It does. It's not an option.
Okay.
So,
I think when you did that, though, you no longer had a bond issue, right?
no, we to the tax 100, 1.8 that we took out of the dump fund, and 1.8 we would bond.
Okay, I recollect.
It was either one or the other. It was one or.
I thought the bond issue hadn't passed one year, and then the following year you went with the other option. But
No, they were all on the same, they were on the same ballot.
okay.
They were on the same ballot. The other issue is that in our case, the Budget Committee did not recommend taking money out of the infrastructure fund. They did recommend the bond amount. Therefore, we survived the 10% rule challenge because they had approved the total amount.
Because they approved the bond amount.
Because they approved the amount in the bond. I don't know how it would work if you divided the money, but I just wanted you to know it's not one vote, it's three. They all must pass by a majority, and of course, you know, the bond is 60%.
Thank you.
You're more than welcome.
Does anybody got any questions for Mark on the,
No, I think the warrant article has to stand that way at the 5.8, and whatever we do is gonna be separate, and we'll get the ruling from the DRA, and we'll do that on Saturday morning.
Yep. And is it Saturday that you will vote?
So if that's the case, then you'd need all four to pass. This one would need to pass at 60%.
Correct.
And then
Not
the
sure.
other three would all have to pass.
Yes,
By
and
simple majority.
those are all contingent articles.
Chuck's shaking his head no.
Yes. Right. The bond article if it passes, it passes, and if the others don't pass, then we bond 5.6.
Okay, but if the others pass and the bond article fails,
It's all moot.
nothing goes.
Correct.
Right. So the bond article has to pass.
Yes.
Okay. And you're looking to go with the bond for the 5.8, is that right?
5.6.
Okay, okay.
Because we're gonna close the capital reserve fund.
Yep, okay, 5595602. Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, we got any of the old business? So I just see a note in here that tomorrow's the last day for petition warrant articles, right?
Yes.
And I just see a note in here on this SOROC, so they're gonna be submitting a petition, they already submitted one, it was short a couple of votes, registered voters.
Right, and I've let them know, so if they get it in tomorrow morning, that may be on there. Also, the one you talked about Saturday, One Sky, is now gonna be on there.
If you have it, I'll sign it as a kid.
Which, the other one? The SOROC?
Yep.
Yeah, they just had a couple that I could pick out for you on the voter list.
Okay, so we have a list of everybody's got a list of the articles?
Yes.
Yes.
I see a note here.
What, this all?
You still need some?
No. Oh, yeah, 1 second.
Do we want to go over the articles?
Yeah.
Okay, so you got the election of town offices, we have some planning board articles, 2, 3.
Sorry.
4.
That's print on the first part, sorry.
There's a major revamp to the ADU requirements, Phil?
So this is supposed to streamline things, actually, which always, but anyway, this takes a lot of it out of the zoning board's purview and puts it more on the building inspector, which is what is probably correct unless there's a, space constraint or a lot line consideration. That's the gist of it.
You said you need 2?
Okay.
There's 2 there.
Anyway, this is from what it is currently.
Okay. Our first article, Article 5, that's going to be on the budget. We do have I asked Cindy to put together our default budget, which...
Actually, Article 5 is the bonding, right? Is the bond.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
So it's,
So that isn't, this isn't exactly, so are you gonna make these adjustments, Susan, that,
Yeah, I have to plug in the numbers and have them.
well, not only that, but he's got these editorials on the bottom? I don't see that's up here, right?
It's down below. There is no tax impact underneath the recommendations. I think that is that the part?
no, this part right here.
Yeah, that's
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So we should probably move.
you want to move it above?
That's a little confusing,
Yeah.
I think. So above the recommendations.
Make sure those budget numbers are correct.
Okay. So you make those adjustments?
Yep.
Dying?
On the default?
Typhoid bond.
Probably.
Get your SARS mask on.
Yeah. I think Cindy, let me see.
I just put the default budgets. I think it's in your package.
Yeah, what's this number you have in here?
In the default, that's what she just handed me.
No, well, what's the number we have on our sheets?
That's what she gave me, but I think it was before Saturday, so I just want to make sure that's correct. For the
Okay.
default, especially because you haven't approved that yet.
Okay, so she's got a default budget of, well, she's got a budget number of 6 million, which hasn't been finalized. 6,102,920 proposed. And then a default of 5,927,089, which represents, there was a few, it was 102,782 dollars worth of adjustments she considers contractual obligations, $10,557 on our waste management contract. $3,829 on our insurance, which is by contract. And $88,396 on insurance increases. So as of it stands right now, that should read 6102920 as the total, and the default 5,927,089. So she needs a motion to approve the default budget of $5,927,089.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions?
And then the other one we don't vote on until Saturday, right?
That is correct.
Yeah.
print your name there. Okay, the next one. What did we decide on the discount?
I think we're gonna leave it that way because it allows them up to the due date. After the
Okay.
due date, nothing gets done. We talked about that.
There's the funding for the municipal building capital reserve, equipment, highway department capital reserve. I'm just gonna read down through them, and if anybody's got any issues, just sing out.
Just grab mine.
Oh, did I?
There's one for the Nichols Memorial Building.
Yeah, so that isn't raise and appropriate. That's supposed to come out of the building maintenance fund.
It's in
You,
the.
you still have to raise and appropriate it, but the money will come out of that fund if approved.
It cancels out there.
It just won't, it's a DRA thing, it just won't raise your tax.
So are we allowed to say that it's?
Well, it's covered under here for the withdrawal of 137,800 from the building maintenance capital reserve fund created for this purpose.
Could we put which? Yeah.
I don't think we can put no tax impact, because it's all, anytime you
Or
spend.
no additional tax? Yeah, I guess if you're depleting that fund.
Can I just ask, what is it, this recommendations required? What's that?
That's when you say recommended by the Board of Selectmen and the Budget Committee. I think I've got to put that line in under there.
Okay, so that's not gonna appear.
Yeah, I skipped one there when I was
Okay.
typing it out.
No, it's us we're getting one, right, from the budget committee, and we're giving one, right? Yeah. You just didn't put the red in.
Right, I did.
Yeah.
I missed that
Okay.
when I was cutting and pasting there, but it should be underneath there like the other.
Okay.
I think basically it appears under all of them. Last year, we just put it under all of them. We've had money at the budget committees as a recommendation.
What are we doing on the acoustic panels?
What was that lower figure? Do you have that, Susan?
It went back to another company. I never saw it again. Do you have another number?
The
for
acoustic panels?
No, there was two numbers. There was one that he was gonna do the whole town hall, and there was one that was gonna do partial.
That original?
The original gentleman,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Yes.
I thought you had there was someone else in here last week.
That was for
That was
something else.
sound. That was for sound.
All right, I don't know if I got that right.
So that was the original.
So we wanna go with the low, which was, $29,106.
Definitely want that in there.
29,106?
Yeah.
Okay. And the next one, are we gonna put that forward? Audio. Audio visual equipment?
So I would withdraw Article 13.
Anybody else? Everybody comfortable with that?
Yes.
Okay.
What are we doing for a projector in here?
We're gonna, 600, basically, we're gonna do that with some speakers.
Okay.
Okay? At a cost, buying it through the school is gonna be $600 is what we got a price.
The other one was pretty expensive.
The other, we're about $25,000.
To start with. You keep going from there.
Yeah, and the sound system too, we were at $20,000, but that's a side point. So I guess the other thing is we have to close out the 325th fund, we can't just rename it.
No, Cindy went through the DRA to set
Yeah.
this up.
Did she say what was in it?
She did not.
It's 70,000, I thought. No, it's 70,000, it's right here, it's on the next page, Article 16, which will soon to be Article 15.
Okay.
70,000, I don't know, raise.
So that's the 70,000, moving it into establishing a new fund.
Yeah. Can I ask a question? So if we're agents to expend, if we do set up this new fund for the 350 and put 70,000 in it, can we put money into that? How did the money get in there from the 325th?
They've been building it up with Kingston Days money.
Yeah, but how did, you could always add to it?
I think so, once it's established.
Yeah.
It was established quite some time ago.
So we could put money in it, okay.
There was a warrant article years ago.
Reorganization.
So, on the 79E, I know I came in halfway through.
Under what?
79E, Article 17.
Yep.
Has anyone asked the question, since this is in the historic district, is any of the stuff that's being proposed even allowed?
If what?
If any of the things that are being proposed are even allowed under the current zoning for the historic district 1?
I think quite a few of them probably aren't.
That's,
by our current ordinances.
as I read it, yeah, that's
You mean like,
apartment buildings.
But they're hoping that
Not allowed.
the town is gonna work with the developer.
they'd have to get full approval, just like anybody else would.
So we're approving a tax break for something that isn't allowed in.
Well, no,
We're not approving it for that, we're approving it in general.
We're just adopting the community revitalization tax relief incentive program.
Right. Has nothing to
That
do
can
with
be
the school.
utilized by anybody if they put in a application.
Country store is a prime example.
Well, it has to get, yeah, but they have to put something forward to this. First of all, we have to allow it. Then any project that comes up will have to come to this board, and we can set up the criteria.
Well, I understand that, but, okay.
No, that person is gonna have to go to the
More
board.
likely the process is gonna be, if this passes, there'll be a subcommittee set up that it'll go to first to decide if it meets the criteria and everything, and then it'll come to us.
So we're not putting any dollar minimum on this or anything?
It's our discretion.
Okay, well, have fun reimbursing people for koi ponds in their front lawn.
Okay.
No, it has to be benefit.
Well,
who are you to argue that it is?
Saturday for the recommendation. So it'll be noted accordingly. And so that may be 3-0 instead of 4-0.
Well, there's 5 of us.
I won't be here.
Oh, you won't?
No.
You're not here Saturday?
I told you guys that. I wouldn't.
I didn't know when.
What's that?
I knew you were going, but I didn't know when.
Yeah, I'm gonna be in Vegas for the week. Okay.
Article 18, we talked about that briefly a couple weeks ago. Do we want to say warrant article have a estimated tax income impact instead of a tax impact?
What's this?
Article 18, this is the one you talked about a couple weeks ago that, you know, we didn't want to have something that was binding,
It says estimated.
you know, that needs to be a rough.
Estimated tax impact.
Yeah.
As opposed,
I'm saying it's,
Like, you know, 2 munchkins.
and all
Per
such
day.
warrant articles will have a tax impact. Oh, I get it. I just didn't finish reading it. So the next part does say estimate.
So, I mean, if you're raising $700,000 on a specific article, it'd be $1 on your tax rate,
Yeah,
roughly.
got it.
Okay. Number 19,
Should this include verbiage to state that this would not take effect until March of 2021?
No, actually takes effect as soon as it's elected, as soon as it's
No.
19th?
Following year,
It's the following year.
Yeah.
not with his
The only ones
existing
that take
term.
effect immediately are planning board. Actually, they take.
Does that
effect
one
as
not
soon
have
as
to
they-
state that, though?
I don't believe it does. I think that's the, once it's adopted, it doesn't go into effect till the following year.
Right, because it wouldn't be voted on till the next year, and that's when his term runs out.
Right.
So if somebody ran, it would be the next year, so I think it takes effect in 2021.
Well, I mean, all these other articles would take effect. I mean, 79E would be in effect, the capital.
Can you get a
reserve
clarification on that, Susan?
Yeah, I mean, that wording is from Sumner, and I remember when he was here, we talked about it. It has to go through the term that's in effect, I believe.
Yeah.
We'll make sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, we did say, but I think we want for clarification.
yeah,
so we can
clarification,
put it.
yeah, definitely.
Well, what's this, what's 20?
That came out of your inspector's meeting. They want to take the fees out of the ordinance.
Currently, right now, apparently, if we wanted to change,
This is changing that whole section so that the select board shall set fee schedules. And 21 is taking out Article 1002. Since it would no longer be necessary, that's where the fees are.
So, as it sits right now, if you go to find what it costs for a permit in Kingston, whereas most towns have a nice little table like this, ours has about 7 pages in addition to that of all the ordinances and regulation, well, ordinances, because they're passed by the voters, that people have to read to figure out how much they have to pay for something. This is an effort to streamline our process for that. So some of these are regulations, I think we found out. Some of them are ordinances, and this just churches it up so we can move forward with what we've been working on in the inspector's meeting as far as simplifying the fee structure and just making it easier on the residents to figure out what something actually costs.
Okay. Is everybody comfortable with that?
Yep.
yeah.
Then you're down to the petition articles, which I don't have in front of me yet, but this is what they're gonna be, the 2 that we usually get, plus the 2 that just came in.
So what are the other 2, So Rock and who else?
So Rock, and the one that didn't come in on time, and that was our fault apparently, so on Saturday, they decided to bring it in. One Sky Community Services. I've
Oh,
already got
One
that in.
Sky.
Yep, I've already got that in today. I think it was supposed to be in the budget and didn't make it, so,
Who was One Sky?
We talked about it at the meeting.
There was like 3 that they cut out, didn't they?
No, this is brand new. This would be a brand new agency, so they have to do petition warrant articles.
We, the undersigned residents, on the warrant,
That's what it was.
the request to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $3,100 to support One Sky Community Services in their efforts to provide vital support and services to the 31 individuals with development and intellectual disabilities who reside in the town of Kingston in the town's 2020 budget.
Yeah, by the standard procedures set, past
3
precedent.
years.
They'll have to go 3 years, and it's their first year.
Okay, Article 22. Is there anything
How much did
else?
the archaeologist end up costing?
I thought it was like 4,800 or something.
I thought there was, well, there's 2, wasn't there? Wasn't it like $6,000? I thought there was 2 bills. It was the first and then the second wave. I thought the second one was 4. That's why they gotta replenish it, just in case.
It's being used for what it was meant for.
Okay. So we all set with the articles?
Yes.
We'll get those all filled in tomorrow afternoon and send them back out to you.
Double polls, we got Don submitted us a list.
Does the board want me to pursue that with Consolidated Communications?
Yeah, 2 of them are in front of my house.
6.
There's a number of them, as you can see. Each one of those locations that I gave you is a double pole. And there's a number of double poles that they're not paying taxes on.
34.
I thought maybe you ought to have a talk with them.
Good luck, because Exeter we have 99.
99 double poles?
100 is the limit, isn't it?
There is a number, there is a limit to it before they have to actually do something. I don't know what it is. I'd research that, but yeah, it's ugly. Do your job.
To use it as negotiating for the.
So it's just a matter that they haven't transferred the utilities over?
Correct. Everyone's transferred, it's just the phone company.
Yeah,
hasn't
so
transferred.
Consolidated has the rights to the telephone poles in our town. And as such, they are responsible for replacing those poles. I have a first-hand knowledge of this, so they're not doing it. They outright refuse to replace poles unless they're essentially court ordered to. There were 2 in front of my house that instead of running over 125, they wanted to jump off of Exeter Road, 111, and provide Little River Road power through there. They were ordered to put 2 of them in there, and then there were 2 more that they had to do in order for that upgrade, and they refused to do it. So in my case, Unitil came in, set a new pole, moved their stuff up on the new pole, and then hacked the top off, and essentially it's just the telephone who's remaining on that pole. This is the double.
Which they just haven't moved over to the new pole, right? That's the thing, and then junk the old pole?
And if you look, many of these double poles, I mean, Don, what would you say, how long have these been double poles?
Oh, a long time. But they're in violation of, we have to license them. They have to get permission to put a pole in because it's on an inventory.
And they pay taxes on it.
And they pay taxes on only one because they only have one license for one pole. So if the board would like me to look into that, I'm just bringing this to your attention to let you know the number of double poles. And would you like me to continue to look into it and get the issue?
So what do you got, 1, 2, 3? How
30,
many?
I just counted 33 was it? I can't remember.
Frankly, I think whatever because for me personally, I was trying to get an electric service run in, they couldn't even hang a transformer on it because the pole was so rotted, so it put my project off by 2 weeks.
34?
Unitil set a new pole at their own expense. But I think if that motivates them to do their job, then I think we absolutely, just for the residents.
So would you like me to look into it, get it resolved?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Or use it to negotiate.
Okay, a fee schedule for town property?
So this is the one I sent out for Exeter. You can see here there's varying levels of fees for nonprofits.
This is use of facilities.
Yeah, so this came up with the Vintage Bazaar. We had charged them a fee, and then obviously the Brewfest is coming up, so rather than people saying, well, you're doing for them and you're not doing for me, I think we need to establish what these costs are, and especially, people who are from out of town who want to use the bandstand for a wedding or something like that, it shouldn't be the same cost as someone who's a taxpayer in town, in my opinion. That's obviously up to the board to decide, but I know like the rec center is used for things.
Library.
The library. I mean, if it's Kingston residents, a nonprofit thing, then no big deal, but the Vintage Bazaar, that was
Well,
a
that's what this,
for-profit venture.
they're also charged too, right? Exeter nonprofit?
Yep.
Yes.
So I just liked how this was laid out. It's pretty self-explanatory. There's no questions in it, and I think the thing we need to decide is what the actual cost is.
Could we do it, or do we have to wait for that ordinance, that thing to pass for the?
That's a good question.
Oh, I think we can change the fees under the
which
regulations. I don't
one
think
is that?
that's by ordinance.
I don't think there is an actual ordinance establishing what fees are for these buildings, so if it is started, it just goes in as a regulation.
Could we
So
have
can
Susan?
someone come up with a list of what it would include, like bandstand?
Yeah, I just wanted to know that if everybody was okay with this format, I can start plugging some numbers.
I would absolutely, the format's perfect.
Get a list, I think this is great.
Yeah, yeah, bandstand, planes,
Get a list.
town hall, rec
Then we'll
center,
talk about the-
fire department, conference room, any of that stuff.
Yeah, and that was the other thing that came, because you were telling me, like, there were some people just hanging out in the break room, having a meeting, nobody knew who they were.
Yeah,
and-
what are those people doing in there? Are we
Yeah,
allowed to go in? It was
so-
somebody meeting with their lawyer or something.
Who was it?
Somebody meeting with their lawyer. Why they were here, I don't know.
Hey, it was free.
Well, the other thing I've noticed is that the knitting group is at the library, which I don't know if it's in town or out of town.
Yeah, well, we don't have any jurisdiction
gonna
over
say,
that.
I don't think
They
we.
bump people out of that room for them that are town organization meetings.
Yeah, well, that, they operate.
That's on the trustees. I mean, I just, to cover ourselves in case there's someone who's just having a meeting here for no reason or whatever, or without permission.
And I think you have the jurisdiction or whatever the board does to set fees, I
Yep.
believe. The other one we had to take out of the book. to
Right,
set
because
it
there's
up.
existing ordinances with that other one, that's why we would need the voters' permission. But for this one, I don't think we will. But it's a good question, thank you.
And I do like the fact that they break out the town hall, whether it's a political event or just a, you know, the Contra Dance is a lot different than if Bernie Sanders wanted to come and rent out this town hall.
Right, and I think, you know, while it hasn't been an issue in the past, I mean, nobody's been here since, what, Quail? Went to the church up the street, but, you know, I think it's worth having a set fee, and that way, also the discussion, I think, needs to take place is with regards to alcohol in a public place, you know, what our policy is on that. You know, there's some established things here, but I think based on the success of the Vintage Bazaar, there's probably gonna be more requests for that, and we need to, I'll consult with Rich and just find out what he thinks the planes can actually handle for traffic, so we're not
Okay.
killing the grass, so.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you, Phil.
They did a great job, that event.
All right, the assessing. Has everybody got a copy of the letter that Susan sent to Rob?
Yeah, I was in touch with them.
For the email?
Yeah, I did an email, I did a letter, they came in and talked. The upshot is they will send a notice out ahead of time, and the question is whether they still think they can measure the outside of a property if they knock and no one's home. And that's a question I still have. They said the DRA told them they can do that. I talked to NHMA and they recommended not letting them do that. Don's research is,
Okay, what's the board want to do?
they're saying, just so you know, they're also saying if they can't do that, it's gonna slow them up quite a bit and they may be asking for more money.
Wait for that one.
I have just to add this, I have a thing on my Ring doorbell from the appraiser walking around the house last week when no one was home, knocks on the door, then walks around it and measures and does all kinds of stuff.
Your property?
No, on somebody else's property that they put it out in the area. Send this guy, does anybody know?
See, they think they have the right to do that, and that's,
See, the
they tell them not to.
It's clear that it's a trespass violation if you enter onto someone's property without their permission. If it's posted or you're told not to go there, it's a misdemeanor, a criminal trespass, or if it's posted or whatever. So he was told the best thing to do is to send a card, right?
Will do, yeah.
And to go to the property and go to the nearest door to the street, That's what you have to do legally. Knock on the door. If nobody answers, then he needs to leave a card in the door and leave the property. That doesn't give him the right to walk all over someone's property and look in their buildings or anything else. You can't do that. And so I would be cautious because...
Did you read the memo? Are you comfortable with that? I mean, basically, that's what the memo says, right?
Is it the card, the sample they gave us?
Which one? The letter or the card?
No, the email from Susan.
That's what I told them, and then they came back and said, well, we'll send out the card, we'd like to put a line in there saying, if we knock and you're not home, we will measure only the outside unless we have prior instructions to not do that.
Well, I think I would do a little bit more research because, again, the complaints that we've been getting, no one's home and they're walking all over the property.
I don't see this card doesn't say that.
No, it doesn't. That's a sample they gave me. They're gonna write one up with that additional.
I would leave it, you either get permission you gotta get permission from the property owner, essentially. You don't have a right to walk all over someone's property without their permission.
I just don't understand how we're the paying customer and we're asking for them to just comply with, have normal respect for people's property.
But
here's what's gonna happen, is the assessor's gonna go to the property and knock on the door, nobody's there, you're gonna leave a card, and people may never call them back.
Right.
Okay, thinking that, hey, geez, maybe he
if he
put up a
doesn't see
shield.
And then, yeah, but he can sit there and go off of assessments in the neighborhood, and then that person, you know, once they get the bill and we evaluate it at where we think it should be, basically, they wouldn't let us, then they'll let him come over.
Same issue, what happens if you think someone's done their third floor or their basement over? You assess them as if it's done.
Yep.
And if they have a complaint, they've got to let you in to check it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, but I mean, you can do that. It's gonna be pretty hard to estimate the size of somebody's building if they can't measure it.
If they have a property card in front of them and notice a bump out wing, they can sit there and say, that looks like a 20 by 15 addition to me.
But if there's no
Make a
building
note.
permit and
But again, our
they
complaint,
didn't sketch because they haven't been out there to measure it.
our complaints have been that they're walking around the property doing things that people don't want them on their property.
Okay, so,
I'm just hoping by sending the cards out ahead of time, they can set up an appointment.
Yes, that's what they used to do, right? Didn't they used to do that?
I was just gonna say, what did Fred do before?
We're not sure.
I think they probably measured the property.
Yeah,
Yeah. That would be my guess.
but I can understand why someone out of the blue knocking on your door, you don't feel like going to the door, next thing you know, they're wandering around, it's a little
Right.
disconcerting, so.
Who do they call? They call the police.
But we never had anything before. Could we call Fred? I mean, is he available that we could at least call him and ask him what he used to do? Because we never had complaints before.
Right, none.
Maybe he did it from the car.
You know, but I think if our assessor goes out there and they don't want to return phone calls or anything else, then it's on them when he assesses it and does a guesstimate.
Well, if they have a
maybe
standard
the
practice
card-
that they've been in place, you know, that they did that contract for, and we're gonna say, well, you gotta make 6 attempts to reach this person, and you know, and then we're gonna hold. I mean, are they justified in saying, well, I had to adhere to your rules that I was unaware of? Because was that in the bidding packet?
We're not asking to do 6 attempts. We're just saying don't walk around someone's property without permission. I think that's a good way to get shot.
Well, that's at least gonna turn into 2 visits.
Maybe the card should, that they send to people should say something like, if we're, unable to see your house, you will be taxed at the highest value, or something that'll make them think if they get you in there. Because I'm sure people have the fear if they let you in, your taxes are gonna go up.
Well, that's not what he's talking about. What he's talking about is not being able to get they can guess at what's inside. What he's talking about is the outside dimensions. If he can't measure the building, then it's pretty hard to estimate
Can't verify the accuracy of the
the
property.
card, right.
And that's what it's all about, so, I mean, if people are.
I mean, it's, inside materials and stuff like that, that's one thing, but the general size of the buildings.
But there again, I mean, you look at every property card, there's an outline of the building. How hard is it to sit in your car and say, well, that's not 20 feet, that's 42 feet. What happened there?
Oh, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, what do you want to do?
I think we should try to reach out to Fred and just just say, hey, we're running into this issue, we just want to know
Yeah, you want me to,
what your experience was.
Give him a call. I think what he'll tell you is, unless the place was posted, they measured the building. I think that's what he
seems like
said.
they managed to get it done somehow.
And Stephen Buckley said the same thing, they shouldn't be walking around people's property.
He said to err on the side of caution,
Yeah.
if you knock and nobody's there, just leave.
Leave.
That's why I put that in that letter, but then
Yeah.
they came back and said DRA told them the other way around.
He's their head attorney for New Hampshire Municipal.
But he also said it doesn't make any sense not to send a card ahead of time.
Well, that's not DRA though. There's nothing in the statutes granting permission, like, you know, giving certain authorities to like health officers,
I couldn't find anything. It's all
assessing
about the
officials and.
Well, even Peter needs an administrative warrant for certain situations. He can't always walk onto the property, he needs an administrative warrant.
Unless there's a public health concern, I mean, it's the same as the fire department being able to come on your
Apartment
property.
building,
Yep.
place.
Yep.
All right, well, we'll see if we can, we'll go with what we gave them and see if we can find out some additional information. Maybe it's worth a call to the DRA and said, hey, look, exactly what authority does our assessor have if somebody doesn't want to allow them on their property?
Okay, try to nail it down, yeah, because they said.
Or if they're unable to gain permission. Is that reasonable? Okay. We got that issue with the temporary driveway. It's a temporary notice agreement, release of municipal liability. Apparently, the house was constructed. We talked about this earlier at 35 Marshall Road. Do you guys want to sign this release of municipal liability and responsibility?
Some of his answer to that was?
He didn't give me a written answer. He asked me about it, and then he said on the face of it, you know, because he hadn't seen it yet, he was concerned because they're signing a waiver. You're allowing them to have the use of their home, and he was afraid that that would be the end of it. They'd never fix it, and that anyone else staying there hasn't signed a waiver, and they got hurt. Couldn't get there.
I don't see how we can sign it.
Well, they're not gonna get health or homeowners insurance with this and I mean.
I suggest you go look at it before you sign anything.
So I went out there with the fire department on Friday. Dennis Quintal came out, Rich St. Hilaire was there. Due to the current conditions, nothing can be done to remedy the situation until the spring. Right? At which point, the compromise is we're basically gonna try and get it to 12.5%. The town ordinance is 10, the subdivision regulation is 15, that's the happy medium. We were able to get the fire truck up there, the tanker up there, the bigger one, the tanker, after a couple movements. But I talked to Dennis and he was confident that he there. So right now, what happened, and you know, obviously Bill isn't here. Rich brought it up because it's off of a state highway. We didn't issue a driveway permit because it was off of a state highway on an existing driveway, a driveway off of that. But he did raise the red flag to Bill. Knowing Bill, I'm pretty sure he didn't just let it slide. You know, he did love the book. So he did speak to them, and I also went up there with Robert last year.
Bill Seaman?
Yeah. I did go up there with Robert last year, and he stated that it was a construction driveway at that time. It was gonna be brought into compliance, and that was what we were told. Flash forward to where we are now. They thought
That wasn't done.
They thought they needed to have it at 15%, not 10%. So
So is it different than when Robert originally saw it?
he brought it up to to the guy working on the house, because obviously the residents weren't there, it was just the contractor. And he says, well, I'm just putting up the house, I'm not doing the driveway. It was a separate contractor who'd done the excavation. But he said, I do know they're gonna pave it, and when they pave it, they're supposed to be bringing it into compliance at that time. They are still planning on paving it in the spring. They've already put a deposit with the paver. He's aware that it needs to be brought into compliance to meet the radius requirements. Graham was up there, and I think the primary thing is making sure that our people are gonna be safe getting up there and getting there. But we've already allowed 2 other places to go. Moving forward, this isn't gonna happen anymore. It's obviously something that people are gonna be aware of that can be a contentious issue, but there's 2 other houses that were approved that don't meet that requirement. So this was the compromise that we came up with.
I would suggest we run this by Sumner to make sure it's going to indemnify the town.
We did run it by Sumner.
He's got it, he hasn't gotten back to me yet, I only sent it this morning.
I certainly won't sign it unless I know that.
What happens if we have a snowy night and they have a medical emergency up there and we can't get the ambulance up there?
Well, there's, I can point out 20 other driveways in Kingston that the
Well,
same.
here, owner shall indemnify and save harmless the town for any claim of any nature, whether in tort or otherwise, against the town for any loss of damage, including those incurred through failure to provide any municipal services, including police, fire, ambulance services arising out of the condition of the driveway of the premise. So that's what, it says town, but that's what, that's what they're willing to sign.
And that's in effect until they make...
Till they repair it.
To repair it.
I guess our alternative is not to grant a CO until it meets the ordinance. And I think that's what Sumner was suggesting, right?
I think he didn't give his definitive answer, but it sounded like that's where he was headed.
Yeah. I mean, this is a temporary certificate of occupancy with this stipulation attached to it. So I fully agree we should hear back from Sumner, but essentially this is one of these things that slipped through the cracks, and I want to talk about that at the end in the liaison reports. But, with Bill gone, Rich didn't have direct input on it, and Robert only talked to the contractor. We're basically telling these people they can't move into their house because we missed something. Well, we didn't miss something, and it's not the town's job to sit there and poke holes in everybody's plan and everything like that, but they legitimately thought that they had to get the grade to 15%, because that was what was in the subdivision, and that's what came out of their research on it. So, I don't know how you want to proceed, but you've got to tell them that they can't move into their house, because
there's a difference in moving in and moving in without a CO. And if we allow someone, or we give them a temporary CO, we're liable.
I agree.
Well,
so there's a difference. What I'm trying to tell you is, I wouldn't give a temporary, I wouldn't give a CO. If they choose on their own to move in there, it's on them. But if we allow them, knowing that it's unsafe or could potentially be unsafe, we become liable. We become liable as agents of the town if we sign that.
We sign the thing that says we're not liable? We're liable?
Because there's a hazardous condition. If something happens and someone gets hurt or dies in there, you're liable personally.
And this thing here it's premises graded to a percentage less than 14%. What's the ordinance say?
10%.
But they said the best they could come up was 12.
I went up there with a cruiser on an icy day.
Yeah, but I know we don't even have the authority to waive the ordinance.
No, you can't. That's what I'm saying.
The only one who can do that is the ZBA, really.
I just know I've taken the ambulance up driveways that have very little incline in the winter, and it's hell.
But not only that,
It's
did you look at the driveway? It's off
no,
to the
I haven't
side.
seen it, but I just remember one.
And again, as it sits, that's not finished. They can't do anything with it right now.
But if they go down off the side of that driveway, did you see the driveway? If someone
He drove it. He drove it a fire truck.
If someone slips off the side of that driveway,
Okay, so how do you want to proceed?
take no action.
Rich?
Take no action.
Kevin?
Okay, so go with not take no action, but tell him, we can't sign this.
Well,
What he wants to do on his, he can do whatever he wants on his own, but we can't sign this. And we hope that you come back to us in the spring when you do fix the problem.
Phil?
I would at least wait to hear from Sumner if that covers our bases and allows them to move in.
Are we gonna get a response back from Sumner?
I expect to. I was hoping to get it today, but I didn't, so I'll nudge him again tomorrow.
I mean, if there's changes that he wants to see in there that hold the town harmless, then so be it, but
Okay,
we get something back from.
so we'll take no action at this time.
I'll change my mind.
And likewise.
Committee liaison.
Real quick, the fire department will put in an application for the BFS June 13th from 3 to 8
So
p.m.
now it's the 13th.
Yeah, because the 20th and 21st was the Vintage Bazaar.
Did everybody agree to permit that use?
Provided it got signed
Charge
off.
them for the use of the planes?
What'd you say?
Provided it gets signed off by the police department and the road agent.
Are we gonna charge them to use the planes?
I don't know.
We don't have the application in front of us yet.
No application yet?
Since they're a nonprofit using the planes.
Okay,
I guess as long as their permit's in before we approve the fees, then they're slide in under the radar.
anything else on liaison reports?
So we met on Thursday for, we did not have a planning board meeting last week. We met on Thursday with the inspectors to go over fees. We had a printout of all the surrounding towns. One of the big takeaways was we're trying to just develop a spreadsheet where all the fees are readily visible, which is where we ran into the ordinance versus regulation and all that. The other thing that we discussed was the problem is one person's doing one thing, as this thing we just discussed. Someone talked to someone and then there's no notation of it in the folder, and then someone had this conversation with them. What Tori is researching right now is a software to basically have input from all the inspectors as they go through and they say, hey, saw this. I signed off on the generator, but it looks like they're cutting a door in and they don't have a building permit. Or just so there's a clear paper trail. And I see software is the best way to do that. There is an option in Avatar that we use for the property valuation or the property cards, but it's pretty rudimentary. I think it needs to be something where someone can have a smartphone app where they, Tom, the electrical inspector, can just pop that up and just, I approve this date. That's in its early stages. There's a lot of issues there, but it definitely getting a lot of buy-in from everybody that they want to fix it, and our end state is to make it as easy as possible for the residents to do the right thing, to remove the ignorance is bliss portion of it, and that's the other portion of it. With people who don't want to follow the rules, then we can take punitive action from there. But if we have it so convoluted as we do now, it's not really fair to be going after people with double fines or anything like that. So that's where we're at on that.
Okay. Anything else? All right, public comment?
I'm Mary Sear, and I stuck around for just a couple reasons.
A little closer.
Nope.
Not you, the
You
mic.
can just pull the mic to you. They gotta be relatively close to pick up.
Yes, they do. That's part of what I was going to say. But I stuck around for a couple of reasons. One was I wanted to hear the warrant articles, and you guys talked on specific terms regarding things you needed to finalize, but kind of glossed over and I would like to respectfully ask a question. What number warrant article is the one that you guys agreed to sponsor to indicate the tax rate for financial, I didn't hear you.
The numbers may change, because we.
Well,
Yeah,
oh,
the
that's right.
numbers-
We'll find out on Saturday what the number is, right? But it's in there? I didn't hear you talk about it.
We actually,
The estimated impact.
yeah, we actually put the order in, we finalized the order on Saturday.
Yep, that's what I figured, all right.
17.
Yeah.
Placeholder.
17 out of how many are there?
It's 18 right now, it will be 17.
Right now, there are,
Do you want it read?
No, I mean, sure, if you like. I didn't hear it read in full. I was kind of listening, but
It's
didn't.
approximately 25.
But it would be to see if the town will vote to require that the annual budget and all special warrant articles have a tax impact as determined by the governing body shall contain a notation stated the estimated tax impact of the article.
Thank you. And the other reason that I stuck around is because I tried to watch your last selectmen's meeting on YouTube, and there was very little audio. It was in and out. It was sketchy. I couldn't hear Susan talk at all.
Can't either.
Well, and I was glad to see and hear, I don't know which number it was, but that there's something in your warrant articles for acoustics, if I'm not mistaken, so thank you. It's very difficult to try to stay abreast of this stuff when you can't hear it. And by design and just by the nature of how minutes are taken, they're very high level and there's not a lot of detail. So it's difficult, especially for folks who can't make the meetings. I don't know if it's any better on Comcast 21. I don't watch that with any regularity. I think I tuned in a couple of times just to see what was there. But I don't know if the acoustics are any better on that than it is on YouTube.
never seen it on TV. I've been told that YouTube is better, but I have the same problem. To clarify something, sometimes just the part I need is not there.
So that's all great, so thank you. And that's pretty much it, so see you Saturday. Thank you.
Just if I could take a second to answer some of those questions. What the warrant article is for acoustical tiles to hang on the ceiling here. Currently, there is a 7-second reverb rate, which is just not conducive for anyone to hear properly. If we put the acoustic tiles in at the budget amount of $29,000, that'll cut it to a 1-second reverberation rate. The next thing we did look at was putting in audio video permanently mounted, and that was upwards of $25,000. With everything else going on, we thought this wasn't the
Not
time.
this year.
When the audio video guy was here, he took a quick peek in the room and saw the soundboard processor and said, that needs to be, digitally enhanced, where it would pick up, so you don't have to keep pulling the microphone to you, or, it would take out noise and allow it, but that cost started getting to the point of $15,000 plus. So we have to have a discussion. I haven't had a chance to talk with the others yet. That was just last week that guy came. There is money for the Comcast that we received for that, but I don't know where we're at with that, but that's the next step. But we figure, wait and see if the taxpayers are on board with the acoustical tiles, see what that does.
Great, thank you. And I did want to just in parting say, thanks for reconsidering putting in a supplemental warrant article to dip into the infrastructure fund. Clearly, it makes no sense from a mathematical standpoint. However, look at your constituents and look at their cash flow abilities, and I thank you for being sensitive to, not everybody. It's easy enough on paper to say, yeah, it makes sense to keep 18% in there at a cost of 2.5, but when someone's living week to week,
I would counter though, well, if making the interest rate that we're currently making or even half that, we could theoretically get rid of the bond payment each year, so there was no tax impact, so that was why I voted the way I did.
What is the constitution of the board going to be? It's going to be in flux going forward. There's no guarantee that there's going to be consensus or that something else might not come up. So as Ellen said, it gives people a predictability and comfort maybe in budgeting or being able to figure out what they can and cannot afford. So I felt it was a happy medium, and I'm grateful for the concession. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Can I just do one thing under
Sure.
new business? Just so everyone is aware, on Saturday at 3 o'clock at the high school, they're going to be inducting 3 people for Eagle Scouts. I don't know if anyone's gonna be able to make it. I know we are in a public hearing at 9 o'clock in the morning. We don't know when it's gonna get out. I will do everything myself to try and get there, but it depends on when we're done with our hearing here. But I would just like to recognize that 3 people are getting an Eagle Scout.
I actually spoke to them and told them that we had, did they come pick?
They did pick up.
Yeah, I told them that they were done, and they said they were gonna come pick them up, and I told them that, you know, we were gonna have representation, but we didn't think we could based upon that. And they thanked us.
Excuse me.
We should easily be finished, shouldn't we?
You never know.
You don't know.
You don't know.
We're here till 3:30.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping to be, but.
I mean, don't we just go through again what we went through the other day?
You gotta go through each warrant article and give everyone a chance to speak.
Yeah, you don't know.
And the budget itself, if anything gets changed in it, I think it shouldn't be that tough, but.
Okay. I have tickets for the rodeo that night.
So,
In Manchester. I mean, yeah.
so you're planning to meet before 9 o'clock, right? You want to set that? Is that what you're doing?
15 minutes, maybe?
Is that it? I think that's enough.
On Saturday.
Yeah.
Just to review the wording of the.
Probably. Don't think we can take more than 15 minutes.
We'll work on that this week for you to review on Saturday morning. Is that
15 minutes for what?
for reviewing the warrant articles that you're thinking of adding? About the bonding?
The DRA, whatever we gotta do to, if we're going to withdraw, well, we did say we're gonna withdraw money,
So
but
we need
how
to get
many?
wording for that ahead of that time.
Yeah, do you need those 3 articles as was mentioned?
Yeah, I got them from the library ones here, and I'll go from there and with Cindy and DRA, and we'll try to put it together so that all you're doing Saturday morning is reviewing.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, I got, this, looks like a memo from, I don't know who it's from. Is some issues, I guess, is this on the tax?
Yes.
Yeah, when we gave them to him, first of all, we have to get back to them, they're not in the right form, but then he started looking at them and he found some issues that he thought they should be aware of.
Have we been broadcasting them?
No, because he doesn't have them in the right form yet, he needed MP4.
They didn't get into him in the right format?
No, so that was the first thing. The second thing, he started writing down what he found was wrong, so we could.
Did
also
everybody
pass
get a
that
copy
on.
of this?
Yeah.
Okay, is anybody, are you concerned about it, or what do you want to do? You want to send these concerns to the,
Yeah, if they want the tapes on, they're gonna correct the.
Yeah, I would certainly make them aware of what our concerns are and see if they can correct them. If we feel they're a problem.
I gotta get back to them anyway, and there's also one more that I'm still waiting for from them, so,
Yeah.
just put that all down. I guess I could just send that, do you want me to send that whole thing to them, what he came up with?
Yeah, I would certainly make them aware of what the concerns were.
yeah, I mean, like, I think when they came in before, that's why I asked if anybody watched it, because I was concerned about the accuracy of
I think
the information.
Yes, you know, I mean, there's some minor stuff there. When it, instead of saying registered voters, they've alternated the word citizens or residents. Yes, I guess ultimately it should be registered voter. Did I pick it apart? No, I just saw it quickly. I thought it was pretty innocuous. If you want to get down to brass tacks, you're correct. It should be registered voters, but they use interchangeably the word citizens or residents. And then if you read down further, if you do go to the deliberative session over at the, for the school budget, it could be a voice vote, it could be a secret ballot. It's just general knowledge, but if you want to pick it apart, I guess, yes. There's some inconsistencies.
Well, I mean, some of the, is it only for the, it's not
It's
just
everything.
for the school, right?
No, it's for everything. It mentions SB2 voting, and it mentions about deliberative.
Well, on the one that says urging taxpayers to take part in voting for our school budgets, if that in fact is electioneering, then that could be an issue. That's a legal issue. So I mean, that's something that's,
Say voting on rather than voting
right,
for.
right.
Yeah.
You can't,
I mean, like this cartoon, what's that supposed to signify? Squeezing the dollar or something? But I would definitely agree that if you're showing up at the deliberative session thinking that you could vote in private,
Doesn't happen.
that may not be
Well, to their,
the case.
isn't the deliberative session for the school board on Wednesdays? Most of this is related to school budget process.
No, we have the deliberative session, the town meeting here, right?
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, okay,
They're-
slide states the deliberative session is the second Wednesday in February. February 8th is a Saturday. Yeah. So our deliberative session is on Saturday.
well, yeah,
I don't know, I mean, do they do
Is
private
this,
vote
is
on-
this the schools, February 8th,
I don't know, that's what I'm wondering.
second Wednesday?
Adam may have more info.
Sure.
Worse than me. Quick preface. I just want to, I don't care one way or the other, I just wanted to bring these things to someone's attention, to Chief. The point I was making with the deliberative is they specifically call out that the deliberative is on the second Wednesday, and they have a slide that shows second Wednesday in February. And the concern was just everything.
When you say hours.
I'm sorry, the town's deliberative session.
Okay.
That's on February.
That's what I'm saying, is this the school?
Yeah. Is talking very procedure. It's saying that the deliberative session is at the Swayze Gym. No, I'm sorry, not the Swayze Gym.
The school.
The school auditorium. So it's just.
Okay,
Again,
well, then if they're saying that, that would probably correspond with the dates.
Yes.
But-
Exactly.
Deliberative
Yes,
session
that's why
on
I brought that
municipal
up.
budget, being in a different location and at a different time.
Yes, exactly. That was that particular concern. For what it's worth, the graphic, there was a certain feeling that somehow that seemed overly negative. That's not a strong issue. That was just something that.
How about we just have Susan contact them with those concerns?
Okay.
So, all right. Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Adam.
Thank you.
We just need to make it clearer what's about the school. and what's
Yeah, just let them know
Yeah.
that unless they're calling it the school district deliberative session, it could be confusing to people.
Yep.
Thinking not realizing that there's another deliberative session for the town.
I thought, when I saw it, I thought there was different ones. They had municipal and they had school. I thought they had different videos when I saw it. I can't remember now. That was a year ago, but, okay.
I'll just clarify that with them, and since they've got to get them on another format anyway.
All right, we had a couple of, I should have signed those. Couple of land use tax changes. I did have one question on one of these. It looked like I assume our assessor must be on top of it, but it looked like they were pulling out 1 acre parcel and they only valued it $5,500.
I don't know the details too well, we just kind of had the assessor give us his recommendation,
Okay.
so, if you
Well,
need
we
more
can
details,
sign off on it, but just
Make sure
that that's supposed to be,
Okay. You think the value should be,
well, I don't know if it's swampland or backland or what it is. I just want to make sure that that was the correct amount.
The old letterhead.
So that's 2 land use tax things. We do have a letter from Chip on the DES. Did everybody get a copy of that? Yep. And how they're handling it?
Yep.
So basically, it says that my read of it is that because of the injunction, they're recognizing the 70 parts per trillion on the PFOAs.
There are various bills coming through about that too.
There's what?
Various state, Senate bills and House bills that are coming through to, one of them, I think it's gonna be tomorrow, they want to ratify the
Try to
levels as they were or something. but
address it?
The
Okay.
other side is trying to make sure that they include funding.
So what are we doing with the water?
Still giving it to them.
Still delivering water?
We're still supplying it to those 16 residents until this gets resolved.
It was Sumner's recommendation.
It's
not initially, it wasn't.
Not initially, but now that we started it.
Evan, you got 2 pages to sign.
Oh, okay.
Did everybody get a copy of the revenue projections for the budget committee hearing?
Where is tax income?
What's that?
Income from the taxes, is that not on there? Or is that it?
Yeah, no, that's not offsetting revenue. This is the offsetting revenue that we collect, which goes against what the approved budget is to set our tax rate, and that's what we collect on.
What's the shared revenue block grant?
Okay.
Where are we?
Need to sign it.
What number is it?
3351?
351.
Something that we got in 2019, and that's the only year you're gonna get it, so that's why she didn't budget it.
Okay, it was a one-time thing? Yeah, see, we don't.
I'm wondering if that isn't,
That was that surprise one.
was that
that's right.
was it reimbursement?
It was, no, it was like a grant somehow. And they-
We had
and
to
it-
sign off on it especially, it was just a month ago or
And it
something.
could only be used to offset taxes
Right.
because it wasn't in time to
Right.
budget.
Yep. Yeah, that's right.
It must have been additional revenue the state didn't foresee coming that it dispersed to the communities. So typically, this is, excuse me. This would be the projection, and then take a look at it again in October, when the majority of the year has passed, make any adjustments, and utilize that number, that revised number, to set the tax rate.
Right, because she did that with a couple of things, like the land use change taxes, I think she updated, that's how she knew exactly what that was, because she fixed it in November, according to what came in.
Yeah, but that's what we actually collected.
Right, so you'll do the same for 2020, right?
No, I think she's gonna put that as, see how it says unpredictable, so I would
Right.
say she'll put that as 0, and then in October,
Then it will adjust then to
we'll,
what it actually.
Yeah.
You know, unless we had large tracts of land that we knew had already been approved from the planning board and was gonna be coming out of current use because of being developed. And I don't think she was aware of any of those.
I don't think there's much to play around in that figure. I would like to get it higher, but I don't think there is, so I think we have to, I don't know if you're looking for a motion, but I would approve them, $2,482,260.
Second.
Anybody got any questions, concerns? Okay, that's the number we'll recommend to the budget committee Saturday. All right. How about the approval of minutes?
Make a motion to approve the minutes of January 6th, public and non-public.
Second.
All those in favor of approving the minutes as written signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
You gonna abstain, or you gonna, you weren't there?
I read the minutes, so.
He doesn't have to abstain. Did you go to the meeting?
I viewed some of it.
No, not you.
Oh.
No, someone specifically asked that in the NHMA right to know class, because he was adamant against abstentions.
Said there
And
should
someone
never
said, well,
be
what
a-
if someone wasn't even at the meeting?
He said it
He
didn't matter.
Did you read the minutes? If you read the minutes and you don't disagree with anything, you should vote yes or no.
That's right.
Kevin was there, he should have known that.
I don't agree with that statement, but it's.
Yeah, I
his
don't
opinion.
necessarily
Don't
agree with
either,
it because you
because
don't know if it's
he
accurate or
went over it
not
several
if you
times.
didn't witness it.
Just saying.
I think we were lectured on that
That's what the legal
not too
experts
long
said.
ago. Okay. Action items here?
It was just, we talked about it last time, just so things don't drop off, that we keep a running list until we could take stuff off.
These are kind of, yeah, I tried to remember what we talked about recently, but.
So was somebody going out to take a look at the shed? How was that left? Were they gonna have it surveyed?
The shed, we're sending a letter to saying it's their problem, they can do what they want to with it.
They can move it, they can.
We give them three choices: move it, go to ZBA.
Or get rid of it.
I've been by there twice and haven't caught them at home. I'll go this weekend.
I'm trying to.
Excuse me. Okay, nothing else on the agenda. Anybody got anything else?
Yeah, I got the question I asked you earlier about Kingston days. The date, wouldn't it be August 7th, 8th, and 9th?
No, it should be before that, wouldn't it?
Why wouldn't it? It's
Hold
always
on.
the first full weekend in August.
No, that's the first full weekend, I don't think.
That is.
Is it?
Can we go back to the action items? I don't know if we want to have a quick non-public to discuss the third item down there.
I think it's 31st, 1st, and 2nd. I don't know.
Never been in July.
Yeah, it's like the first weekend in August, isn't it?
First full weekend in August, what it's usually, what it's always been.
Last year started like July.
Except for last year when it was 2 weekends.
2 weeks.
Yeah, 'cause
Well, what
it's
about
two
it
weeks.
anyways?
Well, I just want to clarify the date because it's already been put out and I think it's been put out at the wrong date.
What was it put out as?
July 31st, 1st and 2nd.
I guess you would have to ask the Kingston Days Committee that question. I didn't think it was the first full one.
That's what it's always been.
The sign is August, and then the letter, or the numbers are movable.
So that would indicate the first full weekend, wouldn't it?
So I take it.
Do you want me to find
I don't
out?
know. I would say-
Want me to find out from them?
Every sign that there is, they all say August, then you fill in the last 3 dates.
I think it's changed, but it looks like someone wants to interject.
Sorry, just check their Facebook page, July 31st through August 2nd.
Who's first bit? Kingston Days?
Kingston Days. They just posted it yesterday.
I think they've changed that sign even to say July 31st, 1st and 2nd. That sign's been changed so many times.
I don't care when it is, I just want to clarify because there's two
Okay,
different
so
thoughts.
I guess why don't we let the committee decide when it is, right? What do you think?
That's what they're there for.
I agree.
Okay, the record retention policy,
Yeah, one amendment to it
what's that?
on electronic records. We just did the
Just
electronic.
added a paragraph about electronic records, they have the same rules, except
Yep.
if it's an over 10-year retention, they need to
Same
also
as
keep.
paper copies.
Was that E?
I can't remember what.
Yeah,
which
if a
one.
record is electronic, must be kept for the same retention period. Okay. Does anybody want to make a motion to adopt as written?
So moved.
Second. Okay, all those in favor of adopting the Town of Kingston, New Hampshire records retention policy as revised with the addition of the electronic on E, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? And on the 125 project, I think we're holding that till the workshop, right?
Yeah, that's coming up in.
23rd?
Yes.
Did we get the current use? We get them both?
I got one of them here, I got one of them back.
Okay, I'll just throw this in the file, okay?
Yep.
All right, anything else? Did you want a motion, Phil, on non-public?
I make a motion to go to non-public to discuss the third item down on the action items.
Which is a legal matter?
Pertains to a legal matter.
Okay. Somebody second that?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Richard Wilson, yes.
Mark Hayes, yes.
Don Briggs, yes.
Okay. Thank you for watching. That'll conclude the televised portion of our meeting. Have a good night.
I'm just trying to find the
There's that policy.
list again to get the third. Third item down, 1, 2.